City Council Workshop Meeting, June 9th. Welcome those that are in attendance with us, as well as any of those who, for reference, may want to tune in to the video live link, YouTube link, which is washingtoncity.org/meetings. I will look for an approval of the agenda.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'll make a approval of the agenda for the workshop meeting for June 9th, 2021.
Bundy seconds the motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And thank you. Mayor is out today. My understanding is he was afraid it was going to be too cold here. He went to Arizona to try and get warmed up. So we'll miss him today. We will move on to item number 2. Turn some time over to Rick Hansen for a discussion on net metering policy and an update on the Light Up the Navajo project.
Yeah, actually, we've got a few items I would like to cover.
Okay.
Those are the main two. One of the first ones is each of you should have received an invitation from UAMPS for their annual member conference in Squaw Valley, August 15th to 18th. You're all welcome to attend. The power department would cover your travel costs. And there should be a link on there that you can go in and register for your different sessions. And if you need some help with accommodations and setting that up, let us know and we can help you out there.
So how would we be receiving that? Should we be looking for an email, a letter?
Should have been an email. Well, actually, you should have got a letter, a hard copy letter, and an email from Jackie Coombs. I think at least some of you have got it. If you haven't, let me know and I can forward that to you. It's real easy, but we'd love to have you come and the power board as well. So, okay. I think if there's no more or any questions on that, we'll jump in to our net metering policy. We've come to a point where we need to update our policy. The current policy has a maximum total limit of 1,000 kilowatts or a megawatt. We have a spreadsheet, we keep track of that. We found a formatting error so we're actually above that 1,000 as we speak. And so that's what kind of prompted it, but there's some other things that we'd like to address.
Rick, for the benefit of those who haven't looked at the items on the agenda, who don't have this in front of them, can you just give us give folks a brief, better understanding of like the topic we're on?
Yeah, the net metering policy is typically for people with solar to put on their homes, and the guidance that governs that and how we build them and how we pay for any excess from their system back to our system. And so there's the 4 items that are up there, the main items. The capacity cap I already just touched on. And the second one is the title of the policy is another main item. How Washington City administers or their program is not a true net metering policy. So we'd like to get away from that term. I think it causes confusion for our customers as well as contractors that come in and work with our
What are some other terms, maybe some better names?
We'll show you in just a
Okay,
second.
all right, this is the teaser.
But on that same vein, in what way is it not a net metering?
We'll get into that. I've got a slide that'll kind of touch base on that. And then we'll add some clarifying words that I hope makes it very clear of how that works. And then the last item, in light of right now, we haven't required historically, they call it a production meter. It'd be a meter right after their solar system that would measure how much their system
I need to
produces.
do my reports real quick, but yeah, we're good. What are your thoughts on this? I think 3.
Steve Whittakin, we've got somebody with a mic on that's talking. Could maybe help us out. Go ahead, Rick.
Okay, so the production meter would allow us to monitor and determine how much their systems are producing. Right now, we only know what goes to them and what comes back to us, not the total from from their system.
So is that the net metering portion of it? Is the back and forth? And so you would be,
Yes,
okay, so and then you are in this proposal, you are proposing that we require each individual who's tied into the grid with one of these to have that meter going both ways. Is that what you're saying?
we already have the meter that goes both ways. We don't have a meter that measures what the output of their system is. Because our policy doesn't use that. As time goes on and we potentially get into some clean energy standards, it may be very beneficial to know exactly how much is coming from a renewable resource onto our system. And that's the main reason why.
So do we just give them a straight 1,000 watts on, like, do we just give them a credit for having solar? Or do we, because
No.
we're metering it?
Give one
Okay,
sec, one
all
sec.
right, apparently.
Okay,
That's 3 of us now, so.
we're almost there. We're almost there.
3 for 3.
The capacity cap is really pretty straightforward. The current policy is 1,000. We're at about 1,200 kilowatts on the system. And the purpose was originally, if there was a problem being caused by these systems, the city had the ability to basically stop the program. We haven't seen any problems. They work well. And so we're proposing to increase that cap to 2,500, which basically double what we're at now. And there's language in there. If we do see any problems, we could bring it back before you and say we have a problem. We recommend changing that cap. So that one's pretty straightforward. Again, back to the policy name, a true net meter would be, say we deliver 200 kilowatt hours to the customer and they give us 100 kilowatt hours. The difference there, the net would be 100 and they would only be billed for the 100. What our policy does, and we'll look at it just a little more, is we bill them our normal retail rate for the 200 kilowatt hours. And then the 100 they give back us, we credit them 4 cents a kilowatt hour. So we don't work on the net, we work on what is actually delivered to the home or from the home to us. And they're just kept in a separate register in the meter. So hopefully that answers at least a little why we're not true net metering.
Is there a reason we're not true net metering? Isn't it beneficial for the property owner to get? Would it be more beneficial to them if they got a straight reduction from what they are providing to the system?
Yes, but a kilowatt hour they produce in the morning isn't the same value as in the evening. It's detrimental to the power system. And you'll find very few places now have a true net meter. St. George and Santa Clara, they still use the net meter, but they have another capacity. I'd have to look it up what they call it. There's another charge that they charge the customer. And it gets pretty, in my opinion, it's more complicated and difficult to administer. I think ours is pretty straightforward approach. And you may have seen with Rocky Mountain Power recently, they had a whole big thing in front of the PSC dealing with some of these same issues. Because a true net meter originally was done to incentivize people to get this new technology going. But now I think it's more the exception if you have a true net meter policy, or there's going to be a higher customer charge, or there's going to be something in there to recoup the costs of the system.
Well, it makes a lot of sense to me. We're forced to pay these market rates that fluctuate, and at the same time that they're getting great sunlight, we're getting great sunlight from some of the solar that we have, and our costs are growing down as well. So,
and there's a couple other things we'll touch on here too that may help. And so I looked around, and there's several different titles there. I'm recommending that we call it a renewable resource policy. And we actually had that term originally in the policy, renewable resource. And so that's my recommendation. But if you had a strong feeling of one of the other ones, we can certainly consider that, but again, I just want to get away from the term net because we're not using that in the traditional sense to avoid confusion. And this kind of just in 3 or 4 bullet outlines what we do. So our standard customer charge or base rate applies to these customers. So all kilowatt hours delivered from the city to the customer is just like you didn't have solar on there. It's the same rate, the same blocks, etc. And then commercial will still have their same demand charge. So to the extent the solar could reduce their demand, they may see some benefit, but that's going to be difficult depending on the type of business. And then kilowatt hours delivered from the customer to the city is at 4 cents. And that's how this is being administered is exactly how we do it today. So there's really no change to the policy. And so to give you an idea why we wouldn't credit a higher amount, we have the Red Mesa and the Steel Solar projects coming online next year. We're paying for Red Mesa, we'll pay about 3 cents a kilowatt hour. And for Steel Solar, about 3.8 cents. So the 4 cents is actually higher than what we can buy solar on the open market. And a lot of times on the open market, it's down in the 2.5 cent range, particularly on off-peak periods or non-peak months, not June, July, or August. Okay. One of the things, this is a graph that on the current policy, somewhere along the line got left off, but we found it in an older version that I think helps depict graphically how it works. The portion in gray, if you will, is the energy we deliver to the customer. The portion in orange, which will be their best payback, is if they offset their own load, because you're offsetting it at your retail rate. And then if they have excess during the day, would be the yellow, that would represent the 4 cents that we buy back. And so I think this, when I found the graph, I was like, hey, that's a really good depiction of how the policy works. So then we added clarifying language. There was a couple paragraphs that I'd get calls occasionally on that changed the language to just very clearly depict, we're going to bill you normal rates going to you, 4 cents coming back. So they'll hopefully eliminate those questions. Then there's several other minor edits. You should have, in your packets, should have had the, I used to call them green line, but Google Docs, or I called them red lines, but Google Docs makes them green lines.
I have a question for you, just back on the 4 cent per kilowatt hour reimbursement. I'm just curious what that might look like on somebody's actual utility statement. I mean, in terms of what does that add up to be in a typical billing cycle? Are we seeing people getting $50, $100 back, or
it depends on
$5 back? I'm just curious. I don't have solar, so I have no idea.
I would say yes, all of the above.
Just depending on the solar panels.
How big their system is, how they're using electricity in their home, and time of year.
Mm-hmm.
So probably April and May, you'd be more likely to see that credit because the sun's fairly long period of time. You're not running your air conditioner and those kind of things quite as much. So
but then you get into those hotter summer months and you're
generally it's going to be consumed on site.
Yeah, you don't have any power left to put back on the grid, essentially.
Right. So again, it just varies a lot. If you get somebody that has a vacation home and they're not here, not using much, they'll have more of a credit. So
but there are provisions in the regulation that it will allow for that to be put back on the grid and a compensation for it.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
And I've been a vocal proponent of the red line, although I'm willing to be open-minded and accept green line. So
I tried to change it, but I can't change it in Google Docs. I really tried.
I appreciate you of supplying that in here. That's what I was trying to get to. Yeah.
So unless you have any specific questions on those, I think our plan is we'll bring this back to you in the main council for adoption at the next, on the 23rd. I won't be here, but Manager Ed will more than be able to take care of any questions that come up. And if you have questions between now and then, let me know.
And I had a question, and as I read it and as you introduced it, but I can't find it now, so I'll just get with you offline.
Okay. And again, the capacity change is one main one, and just add clarity. It's not changing how we've been doing it since at least I've been here. I don't know how long before that policy was implemented that way.
Well, and I know the city was cautious when they first implemented this, and it's nice to hear that it's not causing any problems and it's going well. So we're moving forward. It's great.
And some of the clarifying language, we're starting to see more and more battery systems come in and more complex systems. And so there's provisions if it gets too crazy or unwieldy, and we'd have to do a study or something like that, that they would have to bear the cost for those studies. Most homes, they don't anticipate that, but say we had one with 2 different battery systems and 2 inverters, and it actually, they're getting fancier and fancier all the time.
What difference does that make to the city? Is it just the way it changes the metering?
No, it doesn't change that. We just need to make sure it meets code
Oh, I
and
see.
it's safe for our customers. And we review it as a power department, and then building department looks at it as well.
Rick, how would a citizen go about implementing this if they were interested in it?
Well, there's lots of different ways. I mean, there's been a few do it yourself.
Right. I mean, if they have the system, how would they take advantage of this?
They just contact Bonnie and building, and they have the applications online or the policy. And you have to fill out paperwork and just get a building permit for that installation, and just goes through the process.
Most all of it's done through a contractor. Folks will find a solar contractor that'll manage the process for them.
Mm-hmm.
I would say over the years, the biggest challenges we have with our solar program are frequently the citizen is given a presentation from the contractor that includes math that doesn't reflect our policy.
Good point.
And so you end up with a citizen that's unhappy with
Us.
the results and complaining to the city, even though what they got was a sales presentation that was inconsistent with the city's program. And so if there was a place to improve in this, and that was a significant portion of what, led to, for example, Legend Solar's downfall.
Yeah.
They ended up getting in a position where they had so many obligations to clients based on warranty type and guarantee type promises, because the systems were not producing enough power to accomplish the financial results that they had promised. And so that's probably our biggest issue with the solar as far as citizen relationships go.
Or one of those installers may present it as a net meter, and it's not, and then they get frustrated. And again,
So that's a good point, though. And I know you and I have
I
talked
wanna
about
get
that as
away
well.
from some of
Yeah. Is there something that we could change with the application process that would help individuals to actually, mark down that, yes, I truly understand that this will likely be my output?
There are some utilities I'm aware of that actually make the owners come in and meet with the power department and sit down, and we could do that. It adds obviously a level of,
Well, I'm just wondering about even like
Baggage
a simple math problem that says if you have X number of square footage and you're expecting this much output or something, you could expect to see, we fill in the blank for the 4 cents, and this is what you can expect to see. There's your application. You send it into us. It's just a thought, but I recognize that
It's a good
we've talked
idea.
about that before, that yeah, they're excited about this because it's been popular, and they're excited about it because the salesperson has told them they're going to, practically print gold bars. But
Yeah,
yes, fire your electric. That's one of the slogans, isn't it?
it's a good idea, because frequently these transactions with the contractors carry a second mortgage or some type of financing it's a fairly long-term commitment. And when they come meet with the power department, they say, look, to get what you were promised, you needed to build, 45% more system than you did. And our policy doesn't allow you to build that much on your roof.
Mm.
And two, it would have been a lot more expensive to build that much. And so if there was some way to come up with a creative way to help just make sure that the city had a process that correctly informs them on,
It's hard on that aspect too, because solar panels are all different. They all bring in different amount of, some are get better than others. So depending on the use.
That's what kind of putting it to Rick to say, like, I realize that maybe you don't want to do the size of the solar panel, but most of them know what their output is. If they had to fill in their output and then they were using our number for the 4 cents and overage and then their average bill, it would render them a number that was at least in the ballpark of what they could expect if the
That's the
sun continued to
challenge,
shine.
is I can't predict how much they're gonna put out because of their usage pattern.
Rick, do you have anything online that has some general guidelines or information about this policy perhaps that might help? I
We
don't
could
know.
probably put some examples out or
May-
something like
maybe
that.
That's
I
not
would-
a bad idea to just
know,
say,
just
look,
to have
here's some residents. We've wiped their names out. This is kind of an average of these types of systems. This is what their payback is, and just include it in the document. That's not.
I was just
bad.
thinking if I were interested in it, I would probably be interested in reading anything I could about it to get a little bit of insight, but.
So
So
we could probably do some examples so they could understand, if you consume this, you produce this much to us, this would be your end result, something like that.
and then if any questions at all, make contact with you so they can
Yeah.
get a little insight there.
Okay.
So in short, then, so we're going to consider changing the name of the policy, which I'm in favor of that. And then there'll be some clarifying language. And then from the 1,000 to the 2,500, or
Right.
basically
Those are the main
just of
points.
the, okay.
I'm just looking at the council here. I'm expecting the other 2 items on the agenda to be fairly long. Are we pretty well clear on this one? Because I think you still have another item to go for us.
Yeah,
right?
it's just.
Just
it
one
should
more
be
quick
pretty quick.
question, if you don't mind. If you have a regular meter, you need a bi-directional meter to make this work. Is there a cost to that or just an exchange?
No, there's, it's part of their, when they come in for their permit, I think it's 480, something like that.
All right, thank you.
And that was exactly the question I couldn't find. So is that an upgrade for people who are already on the grid with you?
Yeah, they have to, I mean,
If they
a
wanted that
normal
benefit?
residential meters like $60. This one's 200 and something.
Mm.
So, and then there's other fees and stuff that go with that. Real quick, the other one, we wanted to get some direction. I don't remember how many of you were on the council 2 years ago when we participated in the Light Up Navajo project.
I was.
And that's where other utilities will go and spend a week on the reservation and basically extend lines to homes that don't have power. They have approximately about 14,000 homes right now that don't have power. And so the one that was scheduled for last year didn't happen because of COVID. The next one's set up for April, starting in April of 2022. And so Jeremy asked me to, we have a couple linemen that would like to participate and to kind of put some numbers together for it. If you put an all-in cost, basically all their wages, overtime, et cetera, plus if we sent a crew truck and a line truck, I'm estimating about $8,500. Of that, about 4,000 represents basically lost work on our system that we wouldn't have done, or they would have done here instead of there. And so we just like some feedback if that's something that you would be supportive of the department to do. And this will be an annual event for the reservation, but also how often would we want to participate as a city? Every other year, every 4th year, you know, just so we have some.
You have a
direction.
recommendation on the participation?
You know, as far as the dollars, it's not horribly significant to the, you know, the department. But, you know, I'm not opposed to doing it every other year or something like that. I think would be good. We're physically pretty close. I mean, they had people when I went a couple of years ago from, you know, Massachusetts, and they would fly in and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
we're pretty fortunate that way. So
I remember your presentation from 2 years ago. I was very touched and very proud of the work that you did. And you know, I think it's a good thing. I would kind of lean on your guidance for how often we do it is my particular feeling. I wouldn't mind having your report back again next year and we just see if we want to go again. But yeah,
Yeah, for my part, I'd say I would be in favor of supporting that, similar to Councilman Ward. If you suggest every year, fine, every other year.
If you could even give us an update on the need, and there's 14,000 homes, so we probably need to be there, could be there every year, but it kind of depends on where we're at in the city. But it would also be nice to bring back some pictures, video of what they're doing and share it out. Those are always impactful to show that what we're doing there is an important part of a community effort for those in need.
in your packet, we gave you the brochure, if you will, from NTUA, and there's links in there, and they have.
Was there links? Okay.
Yeah. And, but yeah, it was a good experience.
it was neat. Yeah. Very nice. Thank you for sharing that.
So I don't know do we need any formal action, do you think, at that point, or if you're supportive of doing that?
I don't know that we need any formal action. It's just, we want to make sure that
Okay.
when we're sending our staff members out of the community, there's support for it. And I kind of like something like an every other year, just because it, you know, it feels like it kind of maintains its excitement. We'll have new linemen. It's really only 2 of our linemen every couple of years. I think it's.
I got a
well worth
call
doing.
from St. George yesterday, wanting to know if last time we formed a crew between Santa Clara, Washington and St. George. And I think at least those 3 are on board again. So
It would seem that there's a little benefit, immeasurable, of course, and that is the experience for the linemen that go there. They get out of the norm. They see how things are done somewhere else, and you know, probably a plus there as well.
that's true. That's true.
Work with some other crews and certainly there's a need there. So that's great.
Okay. Thank you. And it's gonna get hot next week. So
Yeah.
So turn your air up or down.
keep your temperature up. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 3, discussion and an update of Leisure Services Parks and Trails. Barry Blake.
Just a clarification, it's gonna get hotter. It's already hot.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is just a chance for me, and I appreciate the opportunity to come before you and to just kind of give an update of what's been going on, and then kind of go over some of the projects that we are currently doing. First of all, just to let you know, kind of what's been going on, the pace we've been doing since well, most of 2019. I guess we could say 2019 through now, so about 2.5 years. That's just that first little thing that you have on there on the executive summary that lets you know of some of the accomplishments which has been done in the department. And I wanted to recognize really the department for that. Cole and Ben are here, and also want to recognize Mark and Kevin and Jeff at the golf course, and also Glenn at the cemetery. Washington City Parks and Recreation Master Plan was done. Of course, that was adopted in 2019, but some of these projects were going on about the same time. Shooting Star Park was completed, Canyon Park and Hellhole Trailhead, Boilers Park and Trailhead, Green Spring Park improvements. That's the grass basin, and pickleball courts. Completion of the Virgin River Trail, the tank repair for the baseball and cemetery water source. It's up in the yard. That was completed. The cemetery expansion project, we're done with that. Other than we just got some fencing to put in. We're just doing punch lists and doing that. But we've also, it's been recorded in those plots, and we're actually have done burials in there already. So that project is done. New playground at Veterans, new playground at Nyson Park. We acquired a bunch of properties. We acquired the property for the future Covington Home parking. We acquired the property for the dog park, which we'll talk about. Acquired property for the 3650 South Park and skateboard pump track. We had a lot of help on that, and thank you. Acquired property for easement for the Elephant Arch Trailhead. We still have that easement and won't give it up till we have the things that we need from that. We'll talk about that a little bit. And then maintenance, I can't even say enough about the maintenance, all that had to be done during COVID and all the things that were changed. And it was just amazing the work and the things that were accomplished through the CARES Act, all the improvements to all the city properties. Green Spring Golf Course, we had a record-breaking months, many months, and record-breaking year, the best we've ever done. Due to a lot of things, COVID didn't hurt us. It slowed us down the first couple of months, but then after that, we stayed open and people came back and stayed and keep, because it's such good shape. And so there's a lot of reasons why there, but it's.
Can I ask you a quick question on Green Springs?
Yeah.
So I'm excited about the widening of the driving range.
Mhm.
So can you just give a brief update on that?
Got
I
that.
imagine that'll also help with some golf course revenue.
It will. And I've got that
Exciting.
I've got
Great.
that as part of this.
Great.
this
I'll
thing.
look forward to hearing
Yeah.
that. Great. Thank you.
So we do have that.
That'll also help my balls hit grass when I'm at the range. Which I will appreciate that.
As long as you're not hitting my car, I'm good.
Hey, that was one of the stipulations, when you hire, no golfing by you guys over there.
And then
Just the mayor.
And then the last thing we've got, we've added a bunch of programs and camps and stuff at the Washington Community Center. I know Ben's got a little sheet. I wanted him to just pass out and just take maybe 2 or 3 minutes and just talk about that really quick before we move on to the projects. Just really brief.
Yep, I like to be really brief when I come in here. You guys can read through this and kind of see some of the highlights. I wanted to really just highlight the bottom left-hand column because that's something that the council really was instrumental in. So most of it, you were here in January of 2000. I can't even remember what year we're in now. January of 2020. We came in and put in a RAP tax application for $25,000 to go towards programming. So I kind of wanted, we got that money and then we got shut down just 2 months after that. And so, but we stayed busy putting things together. And so that kind of gives some highlights. What was done with that 25,000? We started an after school program with Washington Elementary this year. Again, kind of COVID abbreviated, but that will be much expanded in the fall. We're hoping to have 40 kids in the fall, and I don't think we'll have an issue with that. We have consistently now 26 different programs that are being offered because of that funding, and they're all at this point self-sustaining. And so all of that is covering its cost and allowing us to provide that to more students. And even through COVID, we had 1,513 students participate in programs related specifically to that funding. So I really want to give a big thank you to the council for giving us the opportunity to get that going. And then just if you look in the lower right, even through this year is a little bit challenged. We still had over 250,000 visits to the facility. Based on where things are going now, I would expect that'll be 450,000 in this next fiscal year, just based on the numbers we're seeing. I never would have guessed this 6 months ago because of the closures and everything we had. Brian and I have talked a lot about the numbers. We expected to probably be about 150,000 to 200,000 short on our revenue. As of today, in fact, we met our budgeted revenue for this fiscal year. And so I think that really shows what things have bounced back, where things are at. Yeah, we still have this month left to go. So we're in really, really strong financial situation. And we just finished our summer pass sales. We had 308 families that took advantage of that, in addition to all the other memberships. So that's probably my 2 minutes. So that just gives you some numbers of what we did in the various areas this year. And
I just want to say that this is great. I mean, I'm super impressed with that 13 program participants off 25,000. That just blows me away that we've been that effective. So good job on you guys for making those programs work. So
thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Okay, so now we're going into the projects and we'll just go through these quickly. The other sheet I passed out to you, it just gives you a little bit of it just numbers on 1 through 10 and give you a little bit of room to write notes. And then if you feel free to get me later, email me if you have any other questions. So the first one is the dog park addition. That's just a preliminary. So that shows you kind of what we have planned for there.
Hey, Barry.
Yeah.
This looks really good. It's really nice. It just kind of folds open. It almost mirrors the existing with the expansion of it. Then this
exactly.
looks like a large dog area from the small dog area. I've had, there was a couple here at a recent meeting, and then I've just had a few people that frequent the dog park just want to have some input to it.
Sure.
Does
So matter
this
of fact,
incorporate
Mike
this,
Anderson-
or is this just
Mike-
kind of the starting point?
Mike, this is the starting point.
Okay.
Well, we can make adjustments to it. We've already gone through it and made adjustments. We had another plan that was, and if you look at the price tag, I've got that on the back. So, and I'm not going to say the price tag because I don't want that in the public, because in the long run, we'll have to go to bid on it. But originally we talked about $300,000. We looked at the cost now. The cost of stuff has gone so high. Matter of fact, if you look at the one line item on the fencing alone, that fencing that's there to match that is $60 a foot. Anyways, that just tells you the cost of stuff that.
what's block wall going
it's-
for? Because block wall is usually close to 65
Oh, yeah.
to 70.
Yeah. It's expensive. So that just a little bit of warning ahead of time that costs and things are going up. So those are things that we'll have to deal with later and talk about and figure those things out. But
So Barry, let me ask, is in this layout, are we redoing the sod and the existing one?
yeah,
That's
so let me
pretty
just
hammered.
explain what the process is in this. So the new addition, as you see, there's a fence in between. Can you see that between the bigger fields there? That even the smaller field of those two big fields is about as much as the other side. So in between that, we have a 40-foot gap. So there's a gate in there. They're 20-foot sliding gates that'll slide each way. So that'll be open 40 feet. So that'll be like one area. But we wanted to put that in there so that we could close that off if we need to. If we have any problems in any of those two areas in the big dog park, we can shut that off, do the repairs while they still have a place to go, and then take care of those problems. We will do, as soon as that opens and we have that done, we will it'll be the same situation on the other side with the small dogs. We will shut off the portion that doesn't look good right now, and they will still have a place to be. That's where all the small dogs are right now. And it's a lot better shape than the other area. And we will redo that. That'll be with Bermuda. All these things will be with Bermuda, like we did the golf course, like Sullivan, so that it's a lot better for wear and tear. We can overseed it in the fall and just have, keep the grass nice all the time. So that's the plan. And that's why we have fences in between, so we can control those and move them from one side to the other and really maintain it a lot better. Does that make sense?
Hey, Barry, one comment on design that maybe you've already considered is dogs that use our park really whip up a froth. And is there any wisdom, or have you thought about the idea of shade trees within the grassy areas so that there's some shade available?
We could do that. We normally don't put, the trees right out in the grass. But that's something we certainly could do. And that's something, as we talk with the dog owners, which we will, we'll get their comment on that and see if they would rather have trees in there or rather just have it open, or
See, I like the idea of trees, just a few,
Yeah.
because it might not be effective today, But in 20 years, when the trees get growth, it helps our grass be protected by the sun. And so, I mean, I like trees in the middle of the grass.
Certainly be easy to do.
And for the dogs, it gives them a place to mark. They can all just take turns and mark.
That's what
We
the
can put
fire
some-
hydrants
We
are
can
for.
put some
Clean up
fake fire
water.
hydrants in there. Also in that, off the field,
than
off the
marking
big
the
field, at
benches.
the corner, we have a, so we don't have a water feature like we have on the other one, but we have well, one of the brands would be like Most Dependable Fountains, where we have it'd be a mister or a spray, a little patio there and that has a drink bowl where the owner can push a button and it'll fill it full of water and the dogs can drink. And then they have a little mister or a shower that they can, clean the dogs off with or cool them down. And so we have that in here too. So that's just kind of letting you know where we're going and look at it. And if you have any questions down the road, we'll be glad to answer.
I'm
Has
sure
there
you've thought
been
of
any-
this, but you have a restroom we have a restroom there on the one,
Mhm.
we don't need another restroom then,
Oh,
you're thinking? Okay.
Yeah, we're just going to use those that we have.
Any thought, have we put any thought towards delaying? My sense of some of these construction costs are
Mhm.
COVID related. And as people are back to work and producing some of these materials, that the supply and demand will slip maybe into our favor. We had any thought about just delaying a little bit?
That's up to you to tell me.
It would have to be delayed a long time.
Yeah, I think it
I
would be
just
a
think
while.
the way the prices are going.
More
is
than
that
2 weeks?
They're going to be a little more than 2 weeks, but even 6 months, I think you're going to see the same prices that are up right now. It just depends on how far we want to push the park, if that's the case, because I think it's years before, and if it ever drops, because it
Well,
might just
I
steady
realize that
out.
there's a risk that it may stay where it's at. And that's why I throw it out there is my assumption is that some of this is COVID related. Now, some of it is just construction related because construction is just so high. But I think some of the materials, I would be, I guess we would need to know from parks what the urgency is, if we think we've got to move on some of these, or if.
Well, it's, you know what the demand is for dog park and what the people are demanding. So that's to say it for itself, but with what we will do is where our plan is we will go ahead and continue doing this, getting all the drawings and the specs and everything put together before the bid process. And then we can, make that decision before we go to bid.
Okay.
So,
We may save a little money as transportation costs stabilize after COVID, but I agree. I don't think costs are going to come down enough to make it a whole lot more advantageous to wait, but 'cause I know there's a big demand for that dog park.
Before you move on to the other, there was a Councilman Staley brought up input from the public. Can you just maybe tell me, because there were specifically individuals who wanted input on the dog park.
yeah, so
What
Mike
form will
Anderson.
that take? How will we be engaging the public?
Well, Mike Anderson is the one that was here at council meeting. I've placed a couple of calls to him, haven't heard back from him. So I will reach out to him. We also know some of the people down there. We'll go down there and we've met with them before. We had some issues before a couple of years ago. They came together and wanted some things done and we met with them and did those things. And so we have a good relationship with them. So we will certainly involve them, just so you know that.
Is that generally with the public or is that just with the few individuals we know who've said? that
That's
they're
mostly with those dog park owners down there that use the park the most. Yeah.
Could we just post something that says, hey, we have some designs and we'd be interested in your input and give them a way to submit that?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next one, we,
And when I say post something, I mean like specifically at the park,
yeah,
at the dog park.
oh, yeah.
Thank-
You make a note of that.
And also thank you for making a note. While you're doing that, can you give me a sense of how many others of these are we planning on covering?
What?
I'm just trying to get a sense of
So
time.
that was probably the longest one.
Okay.
This next one is just a very preliminary. It's the floor plan of the new shop that we've got on the budget to build up at the Parks Yard. And so we're just I just wanted you to kind of see the layout. And if you have any questions, we've worked with the Public Works, who've done a bunch of buildings. It's the same architect, the MRW, that has done a lot of their things. So we just wanted to have it in front of you. I just took a couple pages. There's a lot more of the plans that are out there if you need to look at them, but that's just kind of the floor plan, just so you can see what we're planning, and that'll be in this next budget year, starting July. So we're just very started in that. The golf course range expansion, I know it was already mentioned. I'll explain that. So that's going to be happening real soon. So if you're aware of the driving range up there, it's different levels. So you have different levels. So that gives you slopes on both sides and in between. And so is what we're going to do. We're going to almost double the size of that driving range. We're going to take it all down to one level. So we gain all the slopes and all the sides, all those different things where you waste the grass that you can't hit on. And then we're going to push it a little bit more to the south. And it'll just, and then that way we'll be able to move it around instead of on the different levels, because you can't hit over the people anyway. It's not high. And so our driving range is so popular that it just gets beat. I mean, it's just, you go up there and after it just turns to dirt sometimes in the year. And so,
Hey, Barry, and I was wondering, are we funding that through CARES? It seems like that was part of the CARES.
no,
We had talked about it, but it didn't meet the criteria.
Is that what the case was? It didn't quite meet the criteria we wanted it to, but it didn't, because for some reason I
would
had in
love
my
to.
mind that it was part of that CARES proposal.
our
but I-
argument was we're spreading them out, not getting as close to each other.
that just didn't, okay, I just
Yeah.
wanted to be clear that, so it just didn't meet the criteria for CARES, but now we're able to just pick it up in this. in
Yeah,
this
I
budget
think
cycle.
one of the things is it was already, planned ahead of before that ever took place. And so they're saying, well, anyway.
Yeah, well,
That's when
it's
it didn't.
timely, and it just really, it serves a lot of our residents who use that course.
We're doing a lot of this on our own. So the grading will start, we'll be doing that grading. And then the 1st of July, the sod will be here. We
Right.
can't spend any money till then. That's really where the money is for the sod. And so we will sod that when the new budget year
Kevin's not
comes.
excited about it, is he?
Who is?
Kevin?
Oh, they're so excited. They're so
Oh,
excited.
that's awesome. Good deal.
And they're so good up there.
Yeah,
It's really the
they really
best
are.
thing for the course, and I certainly trust them and just appreciate all the work that they do. They're fantastic. So that's just kind of what's going on there. We'll have that done open by the middle of August. The next thing is the trailhead and open space. So as you know, this is the Elephant Arch Trailhead that we have the easement for, that we worked on for a couple of years to get. And then with the development, the Green Spring development that's planning on going up there, that kind of shut that project down. We do still have that easement. We've been working with the developer and with Alliance. I met with DeLoss and with Eric on this. So this shows you now some of the changes, and I verified this today. So when I met with them, you see that first one that shows the roads and access to the trailheads, the 3 different trailheads. So that main loop that goes up and down, that will be the first part of that, and still has to go a long way. It still has to come through the council and everything, but they will grade that whole loop so that we'll always have access up to that trailhead. So when they pave, whatever side they're paving on, the other side will be open to be able to have access onto that. And then
On this map, where is our current, because we had a design and we had a grant.
so if you look all the way to the
And I
top,
think I know, I
At
just.
very top arrow.
I want you to explain it.
that very top arrow is the habitat. And that line, that's where our trailhead was going to be. Now it's just moved down. We still have access, public access to that. And they'll do a trailhead there. The next page shows the preliminary plan for the trailhead, which is a great.
So
trailhead.
this Elephant Arch, let's see, you're calling it the Mill Creek Trailhead now? instead
Well,
of
no,
Elephant-
it's the Elephant Arch. It's Mill Creek Trail. There's called Mill Creek. We're calling it Elephant Arch to differentiate between them because we have a Mill Creek Trail.
Right.
And people know that. People go to that trailhead to go to the Elephant Arch for the most part. So it will be called Elephant Arch Trailhead.
So the trailhead that we had been working on was actually in the reserve?
No, yes.
Or
and
was
no.
it right on the border of the reserve?
It was on the other side of the fence of the reserve, but it was actually a piece of Sitla still had retained in there.
Okay, so
It
it
was-
seems like it's in the reserve because it's on the north side of the
It was on
fence
the, it
there.
was on the reserve side of the fence, but Sitla owned the property. yeah.
Okay, so would we retain that property?
No, we will give that easement up. Eventually we'll give that easement up to, if this development goes through to the developer in exchange for the property and the trailhead and stuff that we're gonna get here.
Okay. But to
That's-
this, but pre this Green Springs project, we had an arrangement with Sitla and a grant to do our own trailhead.
Yeah, we still have that grant. We've talked to the county. Matter of fact, I know Ben understand. We've talked to, what's her name? Leslie.
Leslie
Um,
Fonger, yeah.
She was gonna, she didn't think there was a problem at all, just to hold that grant. We have that $50,000 that they've awarded, so we have that. They're not looking, for us to give that back unless we don't do that project. So we do have $50,000 for that project. It's a great preliminary plan. It's a great plan. It gives us the spaces that we had. It gives us the pull-throughs for the horses for
How many, so are we talking on the Elephant Arch Trailhead? How many, I'm just trying to count here, but how many?
27. There's 27.
27 single
parking
plus
spots
the
there.
pull through, or does that
Yeah.
include the pull through?
Yep. And also
Wondering
on
if-
the other ones, they've.
And this
there
is just preliminary because nothing on this Green Spring has been approved,
Exactly.
but this is just a conceptual then.
That's conceptual for the trailhead in place of the trailhead that we
Mhm.
still can do or may not do or whatever happens.
I know a lot of people even use these trails with horseback. So with the pull through, would it allow for like backcountry horsemen to
Oh, yeah.
do what they've done in the past? And
Yeah, you don't see many up in there. You do see some. We've talked to the horsemen, backcountry horsemen. When we were first doing this, when we met with the critical committee and everything over there and they said that, matter of fact, they said 3 was plenty to do that. So we actually have 1 more than what they said.
This
Now
one,
down the road, some of those other ones may need more, but not that one.
this one appears that there may be more cost involved in this than the other one. Was that correct to say? Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know if there'll be that
Not
much
that
more.
much.
Well, there will be a little more cost. It'll be nicer. It will be
I'm just seeing- yeah,
nicer.
I'm seeing a road going into it and there's circulation there.
Well, yeah, but we had that too. It just wasn't paved. This will be paved.
Yeah.
And that's something we'll have to work out and maybe negotiate with the developer and everything too on that. But
Paving is
it will be
expensive.
nicer. We do have, in the habitat, we didn't have sewer, we didn't have water. This we will. So it will be a lot nicer for the citizens to use.
you feel like the citizens will feel, welcome, like they'll be able to have access to it. It wouldn't feel restricted in
Absolutely.
kind of what's being proposed is kind of a higher end, maybe
You-
kind of what some
you
might
can
call
s-
fancy development, but these are, everyone should have access to the reserve, I
You can
think.
see where it sits, right north of that red line is the reserve. So it sits right up against that
And there's
reserve.
no gates and it's
So
not
the
gonna have
gate-
signs that say no public access and
So
stuff
the
like
gate
that.
into the private is right past that. You see that gated area?
Right here.
Right there on the left-hand side?
Oh, yeah. I'm looking.
So it's
back
public,
at
it's
the
public
main
all the
map.
way there, and then through that gate is private. Yep, so that's why this is here, then they go up and access into it's a great plan. It's well thought of, well put together. It's a great plan.
So Barry, what did the HCAC say about this? Did
I-
they have any conversation at all with them?
I haven't talked to them on this. I
Don't know that we
can't
need
imagine
to.
I can't imagine that they would.
I don't know that we need to. I
I-
just wondered if.
I
they-
will. I know those guys really good. I'll show them this. I think they'll be thrilled.
Yeah.
We just want to make sure the public has access, can get into there and have a nice place. And this provides it. Good?
And would love that and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves on this project because it hasn't been approved yet, but if we're talking trailheads, it would be nice to at some point see the Dino Cliffs and the Grapevine. I think Grapevine might even require a larger parking area
We already talked about at least
for that's
50.
forthcoming, but just so that's on your radar still.
We already talked about at least 50. They talked about maybe having a gas station right there that they could also share parking with, which would
Mhm.
help both areas. So we're working on all those. They do show now also. That was a question last time on the dyno tracks. On the dyno tracks, that is public access. So that is a road all the way to that trailhead now. It doesn't show the color wise, but I verified that today, that is a public road all the way to that, which you didn't show before. And that will happen. All right, so Sunrise Valley Park is the next one.
You guys got to be careful what you wish for when you ask Barry to come give an update of all the things they're doing. So
Well, it's good for you to have this information too in front of you and have it. So if you look at it and have questions, feel free to call, feel free to
Appreciate it.
email. I can send stuff to you electronically if you want that. So
it's important. There's just a lot. And I think that's the,
There is a lot.
There
Do we-
is.
Do we know how much time Drew is needing for his next item? I'm kind of saying that.
I can probably wrap this up in 5
Saying
minutes.
that to the ether to see if Drew can hear me.
I can hear you. I guess that kind of depends on you guys a little bit, just how you took the survey. So we can make it short or long, either way.
So this park, right now we are, plans are complete and the construction's moving along. So right now we have, the parking lot's in, parking lot's done. The sidewalks are going in right now. The bathroom, they just approved the permitting through the city today for the bathroom. It's the same developer, same construction, same sub that did the bathroom at the boiler. So it's the same bathroom as that. You can see the plan. I didn't put all the details in there. I just basically did the plans where you can see it, and then the planning plan that shows kind of where everything's going to go. And it's,
As I recall on this one, Barry, as we look through this Red Waters, Sunrise Valley, there were triggers on occupancy that would trigger them to build certain phases of the facility. So
I think that they may be moving faster and doing more than what was originally planned.
They're ahead because that parking lot didn't have to be all
Yeah.
built right now. And
They've been really good,
okay, yeah, that's
really good.
I'm glad to hear that.
I
This is such a nice park and that new trail's in right there.
think it's going to help the development. This is similar to the Shooting Star Park. Many of you have seen that park. It's a beautiful park. This is so much like that Shooting Star Park. So you're going to get a park just like that. Any questions on that? We really can't talk a lot about this one, the 3650 South Park. There's so many things going on right now, but we have met on site, quite a few of us, and it's a 14-acre park. We're right in the very, start of the design phase. As we walked through it, looked at some of the areas. We're now, putting some of those amenities on paper, kind of where they were going. We're going to move them around and fit and see what works. We've
we see
met
some
with,
of those options, Barry. Sorry.
what's that?
I would like to see different types of options.
Okay.
I mean, I know you're going to run through your scenarios and you guys will figure, but maybe there's some options that maybe we can help with some input on that as well.
And that's why at the very first, we're looking at skate park, pump track, ninja course, that 4-yard dash type thing. Whether pickleball courts is always good. I don't think we go wrong with pickleball courts. I don't know if you want another dog park down that area. I don't. So that is some of
Tennis
the kind of
courts.
stuff that you guys can help us with and talk about. So we will, when we get that stuff together, we'll come back in and show you. We have some great ideas. We're working with Rick Rosenberg on this. He is on the what is it? The Flood Authority Board that does this. He understands all the flood stuff in here. He's doing a bunch of mapping and things for us. So he'll be the engineer that's helping us with this, make sure that we follow all the rules and do everything right and get what we want and are able to do it. And so we'll come back with you and let you know.
As part of that design, you'll build it for potential future expansion,
Yes.
for potential RFP
Yeah,
into that
that's why
BLM property.
I can't really talk a lot about what we're working with other
But
agencies.
it would be built to expand if we do have the opportunity to work with other agencies.
So we're planning that 14 acres as a
Correct.
park, and then we're looking at expanding and doing other stuff. We're working with other agencies doing that. We're just not at the point where we can really talk about that right now.
But the design will contemplate that.
Yes.
Okay.
And we'll show that. The next, we can't talk a whole lot about either, the canal trail. It's moving along. There's been a lot of great things discovered and found out, and a lot of great things to moving it forward. So right now, where I know we're working with, I talked to our attorney, Thad, on this, Mr. Segmiller. We're working on an agreement with the canal company on the city
A maintenance agreement.
maintaining maintenance of that and having that open so that we can maintain it, take care of that. It's messy in a lot of places, and that might help us open it up and do more things in the future. So those are things we're working on right now.
Well, and Public Works has been great to be willing to be part of that maintenance agreement. And I think the Canal Board is.
Canal Board's
would-
been
would
great.
Benefit them to maintain their 50-foot easement
It's certainly their desire
and
for
to
us to
have
help.
that,
And
accessible and open as it is supposed to be.
yeah. So next is the Mill Creek Trail. We've met with the Staley family, with Robbie. Matter of fact, we're working with Chuck Williamson on the Army Corps engineers and Robbie to see how that trail can be designed along there to help us out and help the Staley family in kind of protecting that river and what can be done and what can't be done. So we're working together on doing that. Jeff Sanders, also from UDOT, is aware of this project and going underneath the freeway. And he's talked to us about when 11 goes in and that project goes in, he wants to incorporate at least where the boilers is at and go down to Mill Creek and come underneath in that project, in that freeway
Just right through
project.
that culvert.
Yeah, so that we can plan that and do that as in accordance with that project with UDOT when they do that exit 11. So that's what we're coordinating and doing on that side too, and make that connection from Nyson Park, under the freeway, up to the boilers, onto Main Street, and also up the canyon into Brio, up Mill Creek Canyon. So we're just in the process of doing all those things and have the right people in place to do it. The Covington home property is, this is just the last thing I have to pass out. Just kind of a fun thing to see. So that's just the preliminary. So we do have that property now. That first page just shows how the entrance would be. We already have that entrance there. That's how the parking would be set up. We would do some parking strips and landscaping that'd be beautiful and match it up with what we've got, the Covington home. We have an access that goes through the gate just right, it'd be right west of where our water feature is there. So it misses the patio and that's mainly to bring tables and stuff in if we ever do events and things there. But that just shows you kind of how the parking would flow and how that would work back there. One of the things that doesn't look very good there, but but we still like it because it's such a usable thing, is that shed that's back there. It's such a good shed. It's in good shape for the most part, but it certainly doesn't fit. It certainly doesn't fit what we've got.
Hey, who's this guy walking in front of the?
And you know who did this drawing? You know Will.
I know Will, yeah.
So we took some pictures, walked around. I sent some stuff out to Will, and we sat down on the computer. And about 15 minutes later, he had some drawings out for me how that could look and how we could just not put too much money into that shed back there, but make it fit. Anyway, so those are just some fun things that we're doing with that, and that project will come.
So Barry, I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
I don't know the programming of this home, but it seems like a lot of parking. For that small home. So that's why I'm asking.
Well, so when we first did this, it's designed if we want to, if people want to, I know Mayor would like to have receptions and have things there, any events, that type of stuff. If we ever had a wedding there, which easily could be, the council just decided at the time not to let those things happen because they didn't want to overburden the neighbors with people parking on the street. And so that's why we have that. There will be things that will take place there once it's all done that will certainly need that parking.
Yeah, one of the
Right.
We'll
challenges,
certainly need it.
the challenge at this location at that intersection is there's less on-street parking available
Yeah.
than you would expect. Just not a good site for on-street.
Yeah, I don't know if that's enough parking. And, you know, certainly when this is done, we'll put a sign there that says additional parking on 300 and Community Center Drive, because then we got that parking lot there that they can park and walk down if they need to, but
I know Carmen and Youth Council, you know, we have a lot of discussions about things we'd like to
Yeah.
have there, but it's very limiting because of parking.
exactly.
And
that's the
so
way the
we've
council felt
talked about
before.
Christmas and weddings and
Yeah.
retreats and
a
things that
beautiful
would
place.
make it a lot more available for that. So
So yeah, it
We
needs-
do
needs
kind
it.
of need to remember, this is right in the middle of a residential neighborhood.
Exactly.
So it's, I mean, when we're considering putting on really massive events that would go maybe late into the night.
Yeah, we would limit that. Absolutely. We would limit that. And then the last thing, Nice Park expansion. We walked that also. We don't have anything yet. We just kind of looked at those areas. So that's there. It's been cleared down by the river. It looks so nice. It's cleaned up. But then again, now we're going to have to do some stuff down there to make it nice and transition in. And so we've got some ideas on that. We're working on that. When we have those, we'll bring them back to you. That's
you know,
just
Barry, it might
preliminary.
just be a good idea just to have a brief conversation with Carmen. She maybe give you an idea of some things that she
On the Covington
would like
one.
to see there, maybe a gate or whatever, you know, some amenities that would help with that process.
That's all I have. And I talked as fast as I could.
Ah,
Sorry.
you did great.
Any
So while you're walking
questions?
away, Barry, I'm just going to tell you how much I appreciate what you and your department's doing. I bought an e-bike about a month ago and I've ridden every trail multiple times.
Mm.
And I'll tell you, you don't realize what a very nice amenity that is in your community until you use them. People I've met on the trails and that, you know, visiting with people, it's amazing. Very supportive. Can't wait for the canal trail.
We have like 23 miles of
That's-
trails now in
yeah.
Washington. So, and again, I just want to recognize those that work with me. They are fantastic, and those that work with them. It's such a great group, and the recognition belongs to them. They do so much, and I appreciate them. So thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Barry. Item number 4. This is a continuation of our discussion, a review of the Washington Fields design standards. Give some time to Drew Elliman.
Thank you, council. Has everybody had a chance to go through that survey that got sent to you? And if so, what, did you have any questions, comments? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
We're just,
I
we're
was
just
sitting here
all
talking,
thinking.
didn't get a breath back of anything. So I thought, well, maybe my mute says I'm not working.
So Drew, did you email this? I recall scrolling through this, but it's not in our packet right now. Maybe that's why nobody responded. But I remember seeing it. You may have emailed it out.
So it came in an email from me.
Oh, from
earlier this
Jeremy.
week. Yeah,
Okay.
so if you're looking
Okay.
for it.
It's on the very
So
last
I think I glanced through it then. It might not hurt to take a high level through it again.
Okay, I've got it on the screen for you, right? It's showing in there, correct?
Yes, it's showing.
Okay. Yeah, it just kind of gives, it's 80 pages, but it goes quick because some of them only have, a sentence.
Recording in progress.
Thank you, Siri. And so we'll just kind of go through, hit some of these things. They just showed a lot of the questions. They just gave you pictures of what, interpretations might be. So people, as they're taking it, have a good idea. Talking about, like say this picture, it's your average single family residential kind of layout, subdivisions, multifamily, commercial, and mixed uses with commercial and living above, just to kind of start the survey so people knew what kind of the questions were going to be. Institutional, does that mean we won't go into that one then, I guess. So, so the questions, I didn't know, did you have any any concerns about any of the questions and the way they were worded? I guess as you went through it. Or do you just want to kind of, like I said, I didn't know we were going to hit them page by page. I was hoping you guys might have just had a little pocket notes that you might have taken.
It sounds like maybe because of the size of the survey, we may not have had enough time to review it. Is that kind of what I'm,
Well, I think
I don't think I
kinda
got the email. I never saw it.
okay. Well, I think yeah, it's been out
I
quite a
was
while.
kind of
but
the
I'll look
same
for it.
way. I got the email, I saw it, and then I kind of expected in the packet to remind me to review it for this meeting, and even now I'm scanning through my thing and I can't find it. So, and
No, I apologize for that if it didn't get communicated well. And then the thing that I just sent out tonight that we just got after the packets went out was the map of the.
That was
the
very
fields.
helpful.
So maybe I don't feel like there's maybe any time pressure on this. We might want to maybe look at the map and have a little discussion on that, if that's okay, Drew, and then I could resend this. With the-
Yeah, because with all the pauses, I kind of got a hint that, it won't be good to go through the survey with the limited time. So we'll kind of hit the map.
well, so
As
I'm
you-
trying to draw back on my memory from looking at what I had seen there with the pictures. And I don't remember much of the language of the questions, but I'm having a little bit of trouble going from the pick which picture and kind of what you like, and then the questions to getting to what I really kind of hoped was the vision of what we were going to do in this larger conversation. So what happens after the survey? How does that come back to the council? How do we go from the survey into a productive conversation that makes changes for our fields area?
Yeah, generally what'll happen on this, I've sat through a few of these or gone through a few of them, in the years of my time as a city planner, is that we'll get the survey results back. And then the people that are doing the project for us will gather that information. And what they'll do is say, based on the results of the survey, here's what, people felt they would like to see more of, there's not enough of. They tended to, be slided one way versus another way. They'll give you all that information and tell you things that they would propose for you to meet the results of that survey. Ideas that you can ponder over. They'll give you a few options probably, but they'll meet with you or they'll probably just go to the open houses. I'm not sure how they were going to do it. Meet with you first, then do some open houses, then come back to you, or have the open houses, then show you a final result. But you guys can be part of that open house process anyway. In fact, I would encourage it, that the planning commission and yourselves be a part of those open houses, showing the results of the survey and just talking to folks and showing them what came in as the majority of the respondents were.
Drew, what if we dig through that email and go through that survey ourselves, and maybe what we can do is just email you directly any feedback that we have. And it sounds like we'd want to get that survey out at some point, and it's set on the back burner for a while, and now it's kind of coming to a head. But I think that's what I'll probably do, is I'll just read back through that survey and I'll just shoot a quick email over to you with any thoughts I have. And then if it needs to come back at the next work session, that might be a little more palatable than taking an 80-page document and trying to go through it in 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's what I would appreciate if you gentlemen want to agree to that. Just kind of, we'll resend it out. Jeremy will get it out to you as city manager, and then give me back any feedback of anything you want tweaked on that survey. But is everybody kind of in agreement we want to go through with the survey and can finish this project up? Just at least get the information.
That's why I'm asking my question as far as the process. I know when this was originally presented, I was actually fairly excited about it. Part of the excitement was the energy and the ideas that the group that you brought to this project. There were just things that they were presenting and they were talking about that I had never considered and didn't even realize were options.
Mhm.
That's what I really thought was the great benefit, and having those options put out and then go to the public. I could see those be a great resource, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure without presenting those type of options and giving some ideas to the public that they're going to do any. I don't want to doubt the public, but I'm not seeing how this is going to flow back to us in a way that is going to measurably increase the conversation and change the output. I guess that's my.
And Drew, my opinion also is that what worries me about this is that it identifies with what we want in our fields, that maintains our historic traditions of the fields. But for me personally, I know that we've got a little bit of money left to pay. But I just want to make sure that my opinion, well, I want you to know that my opinion is that I feel like working with you in your department, I have every confidence in the world that we'll get it right and have more input in being able to do that. I think that there's benefit from this where we've already put it out, but I would just hate for it to ever become the determining factor up, in front of what an active part of the council and your planning department would have in this.
Well, and I appreciate that. And that's why with what's kind of left on the thing, I'd really like to see what they do bring back. Again, I think it's like what Councilman Ward said, there was some excitement. Again, they do this professionally all over. And I just want to see what their magic they can bring and give us some ideas and some concepts that we may have not thought about that could work real well in preserving, but yet, developing this in a really good way. What's left in the fields. So
I think we're all in agreement that we'd like to see this come back at least to
Another
for
work
another
session.
workshop session, and we'll look at the email and review the.
So
Appreciate that suggestion.
One quick comment I had for the staff is on the map. It looks great. I think we need to include the area that goes over to 3650, the undeveloped area that heads 3650 to the Southern Parkway. It's not included on the map. And that was one area I thought we were going to address, is that area.
Which area are you talking about specifically?
So
The Stuckey Farms area
nope,
south?
nope.
I'll show you. What he's basically talking about over in here.
Anything not in the BLM that's developable.
Okay.
Because he actually circled the BLM piece, but I mean,
Well, part of it, yeah.
I'm saying,
Well,
but that's all BLM.
But
Everything.
I know,
else-
but this is a lot of residential up here that I think you're trying to push me up to,
Yeah, right.
right? Because
There's parking.
and again, this is already 90% laid out over in this area. What I've done your hashes.
I would say all along the bench there, it kind of identifies as fields, even though it's technically bench, but I would even say kind of north of there, but there is not a lot of infill left. I mean, there are a lot of new lots going in as, kind of as we speak, but north along the bench, all the way from 3650 South Extension, I would say up to and past the Washington Dam Road to, into Indian Oaks, Indian Knolls.
Saying the whole bench. Yeah.
I think the whole bench essentially, yeah, along.
I agree with you. I think that whole area is part of the fields. Everything south of the
Yeah, I do
river.
too.
But I guess what I'm going to ask you, gentlemen, is that everything's kind of planned out till you hit all those high peaks that no development will go. You're not going to be seeing any new projects in that area you just talked about.
But aren't we saying to the residents who live down there, what do you want to see this look like? And I think all of the residents in those areas have an interest in maybe sharing how they think it ought to develop, at least giving their opinions, and that's what a survey is.
And more of a survey
Oh,
input.
I thought you were talking about the area to be designed, not the people getting. You want those people to get the survey.
I'm not talking survey. I was talking, hey, we're not including the area of design on 3650. And that's going to be our back door to our fields area off the parkway. So
There's a little bit left there.
I think that area needs to be included. Now, as far as the survey, I don't know if I've addressed that, but I agree anything in the fields area should.
Look, I think the more planning you can do, the better. And the more survey respondents, the better. So I have no objection to that.
And I think part of the discussion is defining what the fields is. So when I asked Dale to make me the map, that was his question. What is Washington Fields? Where are you going to impose those design standards? I guess is the real question. That's what we're looking at, because we only have about 33% remaining other than those large parcels there that they're circled in red, that will be part of our city someday, but they're not incorporated currently. So
And it looks like he included those as part of being developed areas, even though they're still in the county, based on
He
his
just-
hatches.
Put them as undeveloped.
he put them as undeveloped.
Yeah,
and
undeveloped, but
didn't include
future,
in the
potential
percentages.
future development.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm saying is since that's our entrance into the fields, that's where we should extend along 3650 as our entrance into the fields.
Okay. And I think really the point of this map was more just a visual representation of where do we still have left to develop? What are we actually talking about adding standards to? And one thing that's kind of interesting is there are some larger pieces, but you know, they're not, we're going to add some consistency in an area that's 67% completed. So it's kind of just an interesting concept. I think we should move forward.
Let's move forward and let's we can continue talking about the area. We're gonna have another workshop meeting. I think we probably need to wrap up here so we can at least take a break.
My only other comment is the email was in my weekly email from last Friday.
Was
the
that where it
attachment. So
was?
I'm going to try not to be offended.
Now we know who reads the
Right.
emails.
Oh, I mean, I know I saw it, but I couldn't
I-
find it again.
I can
so-
resend it, but it's the weekly email from.
Okay,
6/4.
I'll find it from there. So that's good.
Okay, thanks.
Ouch, threw me under the
Yeah,
bus
well,
like that.
I
I
mean,
did. Well, when you read it on the phone, you're like, okay.
All right.
So shall we 2 weeks from tonight back on the set, give you a
That would-
chance to,
That'd be my preference.
okay.
Keep the momentum going with it. Okay. I thank you, Drew. I will look for a motion to adjourn then.
I motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Second, by Coates.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll just make a comment that the same feed will be open if you're on YouTube. We'll be back very shortly.
Acres?
I told Carmen that if they can't stand it, we'll bring in some more chairs. We're doing that now. Well, welcome to our Washington City Council, June 9th. I am Doug Ward, Mayor Pro Temp, filling in for the mayor who is out of town this evening. Welcome you all here who are in the audience, and those that are following us on washingtoncity.org/meetings on a YouTube live broadcast. I would encourage all of us to silence our phones and maintain to maintain the decorum of the meeting. We will at this time turn some time over to Taylor Hughes. And I think, Taylor, can we just have you come to the microphone here and we'll have you give the invocation.
Our dear, kind, gracious Heavenly Father, we are so grateful for this very nice day, and we're grateful that we could come together as youth and parents and leaders to put in these new youth council leaders and hope that they do the great things that we know they can. And please help the Spirit to be with us, that we may do this in a righteous way, and in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
Amen. And then we'll have Chris Lynn Wilson come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And if the microphone here is not okay, we have a remote mic you can use, but do you have a preference?
No.
Okay.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Well, thank you. We have in attendance for a later item, our Youth City Council. I thought it would be just a shame not to take a full advantage of them and have them on the program as much as possible. I thank Councilman Ivy for reaching out and arranging, getting those names and getting that arranged for us. I will look to the council to have an approval of the agenda at this time.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Washington City, June 9th, 2021 council meeting as depicted on our agenda.
Councilman Bundy, second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Any announcements that need to come before us? Seeing none, I will move on to item number 3, declaration of abstentions and conflicts.
Councilman Bundy, I have potential conflict on 6A and 6B. I'm not invested or have any profits from either of those, just provide professional services.
Thank you, Councilman. Anything else? We'll move on to item number 4. This is our consent agenda. Item number 4A, approval of the minutes. This is a consideration to approve the minutes from our council meeting of May 26th, 2021. Item B is the board audit report, consideration to approve that for May 2021. And item number C, a final plat for consideration to approve the final plat for the Villages 26 at Stookie Farms.
So I had one quick question on the final plat for Stookie Farms. Thought when they submitted the preliminary plat a couple weeks ago that we were going to address the additional roadway width on the Groves Parkway and Waters Edge Way. So I don't know if staff can help me on that. Thought that was supposed to be 6 foot wider and we were going to address it on the final plat.
I assume
That's something Public Works will have to chime in on. Are they on the line?
if they're on the line, I'm not sure that they're unmuted. We're looking for Mike.
I don't see anybody on there.
Down there.
Maybe in this case, we can approve the minutes in the board audit and circle back to the final plat later in the
Works for
the
me.
agenda.
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem, if with your willingness, I'll make the motion that we approve items 4A and 4B of the consent agenda and table 4C to later in this meeting when we get clarification on Councilman Coates' question.
Thank you
Councilman
for that
Bundy,
motion.
second. Oh, sorry.
I got a
Second.
motion and a second from Councilman Bundy. I'll do a roll call vote. Councilman
Bundy,
Bundy,
aye.
Coates, aye.
Ivy, aye.
Staley, aye.
Ward, aye. Now we'll move on to item number 5. And I'm excited about this. This is a presentation from our Washington City Youth Council. Do we know who is presenting for us?
Mayor Pro Tem, I have the plaque here. If I may, I'm going to
Wonderful.
go down into the
Thank you,
gallery.
Councilman.
Let me just, while I have a microphone, I have an award here. I know you can't see it, but I'll read it to you. It says, Washington City Youth Council. Washington City Youth Council presents to the city of Washington a check for their volunteer hours from June 2020 to May 2021. And the way this is calculated is $10 per hour at 3,260 hours for the year, means a benefit of $32,600 to the city of Washington. And being a very small part of that, I can tell you that the impact of this youth council and Carmen Snow on our community is something that I would like every one of you to be able to experience. It's positive, it's wonderful, it's some of the best things of our city. So Mayor Pro Tem, if I can go down and get a quick photo, if that would be okay.
Please do.
And anyone that would like to join.
Let's go down.
Now, if we have a representative from the Washington City Youth Council that would like to speak on this topic, please come forward. I don't want to deny, this is wonderful. And I just really, truly enjoy having them here. I would give full opportunity for.
Well, the check was really small this year. It was COVID, but we did manage to get quite a few events in because of it. We kind of went around behind you. Did it, but I think we all survived. But in the years past, though, our checks have been much larger. And I try to tell the youth the reason we do these and we keep track of our volunteer hours is because the city can use them as in kind towards grants. So it's really quite crucial. And the things that they do for the city, if you were paying somebody, that's what it would have cost you. So we saved you a lot of money, even though it wasn't very big this year.
Well,
So
I truly believe that if we were paying for it, it would cost us more.
Yeah.
Because that $10 an hour is not covering the cost to pay someone.
oh,
So,
yeah, that's true. Right now, life is a little different, isn't it? In the workplace, it's going to be really different, I'm sure. So maybe we might have to up our wages. So anyway, so shall we go on with the other?
We can, unless you have any other that you would like to bring forward. Okay.
No, only that last year our theme was make your own path. And we loved that theme and it worked out really well because they tried to decide where they were going to go in life. And so it was really hard thinking of a theme, and Representative Segmuller came and spoke to our youth council at one meeting, and they talked about legacy, and it just struck a chord. I'm from Washington. My A's are O's and my O's are A's. So if you didn't know what I just said. Anyway, our theme last year was make your own path, but our theme this year is today's footprints, tomorrow's legacy. So I really feel like these youth and the last 11, this is our 11th year, have left a real legacy here in Washington City, and I'm so proud of them. It was really hard this year. We only had 9 openings, and the way we choose our new members to come on board, the seniors that are going off, interview the applicants. I have nothing to do with it. I just tell them it's individual. They don't talk amongst themselves. And you look at if it's something that will help them or something that will help the council, really look at them. It's not a personality contest. So, and I think they were very fair. They were so fair, but we had 18 applicants, 9 openings. It was really hard because every time they walk through that Covington door at the Covington Match, and when we do it, I know that those are all very special youth in our community because they're willing to give up time, give service, and volunteer. And so if it was my way, if we could, I'd just take them all. So we did up our bylaws a couple of years ago because I did take them all up to 25. And last year we were down to 20. And so when I went down and the youth had picked the 9, I said, okay, our bylaws say up to 25. So we actually got 13. So now we are up to 25 again. So don't tell the mayor because he told us not to do that. So I'm not teaching him very well, am I? But anyway, so we're excited and we've got cream of the crop right here behind me. And we have had them for the last 11 years. And as I introduce their names, I'll just have them come up front. Okay. And be cautious if I say it wrong, you kids. I'm just learning you. Jackson Vaughn Adams. Could you come up here and stand, Jackson? Is he here? Lauren Brady. Audrey Earl. Peyton Thomas Feltner. Benjamin Robert Ficca. Callie Hench. Excuse Miles Libby. He just had a little surgery. And okay, I cannot say her name yet. Help me, somebody. Mia, Mahi. Mahi Patel. She is out of town. Colby Robinson, he is a working boy and he did have to work tonight. Natalie Roper. Reese. Caroline Tanner.
And I think we can go to either side here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Lacey Turner and Ella Tyler. Aren't they fabulous? Do you want them to turn around and look at the group?
Yeah.
Step away.
Carmen,
Well, if you'll stay right there, youth council, we're going to give the oath of office right now.
I'd also like to know what schools they're from. Could I have everyone from Pineview raise their hand?
Okay.
Or Hills?
Well, there's 3 others from Pineview that aren't here.
Okay, and then is the rest Crimson?
Crimson.
And what are we missing?
We got a Dixie.
And Dixie.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Okay.
Mostly Crimson, which is kind of new, right?
Yes.
We've had traditionally been mostly Pineview and Desert Hills, and now have some Crimson and even a Dixie. Great.
Right. So it's good. So very good. She's going to give the oath. I don't give the oath. amazing?
They are.
I can't hardly wait for this year. It's going to be so fun. I hope they think the same. Tell me you do. No, I'm sorry, Mr. Ward, Councilman Ward, for being so me. But we'd like to be excused because we're going to meet with the parents and have a meet and greet and go over our schedule for the year.
Well, my favorite part about you is that you're you.
Oh,
So I really appreciate that. And you are excused.
okay.
But may I say before you go, the youth council, present and former, you inspire me. And when I think of the duties that I do and the decisions that we make, we know that we have to make our city good for these kids in the future. So thank you very much. Appreciate your service.
And we thank you for all you do too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, as they're leaving, may I just remember the graduates from this last year? Would that be okay if I just take a second? These are our 2021 graduates from the Washington City Youth Council. Our first year was OJ Ohani Reynoso. She is our parliamentarian. Alexa Hench was the social co-chair. Our second year was Colin Burr, who was a councilman. Benjamin Park was safety. Isabel Marsden was communication. Rains Kenworthy was a council member. And Emma Ward was the rep for Pineview. And Emily Richardson was our city manager, and Carter Libby did a wonderful job as our Washington City Youth Council mayor. The last thing I would mention is that during our final party, we awarded scholarships, and that was quite a process for me to be able to read these essays that were done, and I'm just amazed. Don't ever let it be said when you hear somebody say kids today, you finish that with, they are amazing, because they are. I appreciate my service with them.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay, with that lovely event concluded, we'll move on to item 6, preliminary plats. This item 6A is a consideration to approve a preliminary plat for Souls at Coral Canyon, applicant Cole West Homes, and we'll turn some time to Eldon.
Thanks, council. This item was tabled from our last city council meeting, May 26th, and the applicant is now forward to move forward. The applicant is requesting approval of a preliminary plat for the Solis at Coral Canyon subdivision. It's located on the northern tip of Highland Parkway. The applicant is proposing 233 lots on an area of coverage of 120.20 acres. Zoning designation at this particular location is planned community development. The surrounding zoning is planned community development to the north, east, south, and west. There is a small portion of R18 to the northeast and a small portion of open space to the northwest. The secondary access for this subdivision will continue off of Highland Parkway and drop into the Sullivan property, which ties into the northeast end of the Sienna Hills Planned Community Development. The proposal identifies the secondary access as being done in the future, and staff has concerns that this secondary access needs to be addressed at this time. The Planning Commission reviewed this proposal on May 5th, 2021. And discuss the secondary access, where they incorporated condition number 14, addressing the secondary access situation. The proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning. The request meets subdivision requirements and other city ordinances as it relates to this location. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of the preliminary plat as outlined, and recommends placing a condition as to when this secondary access will be built. And the condition that was added from the Planning Commission, number 14, states the secondary access will be a paved full access road prior to building the 10th home. Specifically, lots 14 through 17 and 36 through 40 were designated as the approved 9 lots to be built on prior to the build out of the secondary access.
Thank you, Eldon. Council, any discussion on the item?
Yeah, I'd like to just ask Eldon if, and I may have some other questions later, but just to start, can you just clarify what the planning commission recommended? Will you just kind of restate that and clarify what that approval entails?
So it's a paved full access road prior to building the 10th home. So the planning commission gave them the ability to build 9 homes, and prior to the 10th home triggers that full access paved road to be completed. Does that make sense?
That does, and I appreciate that. I also just, and I understand the answer here. I'm just maybe asking for clarification for those who are in attendance. The planning commission recommended approval of 9 lots of 9 units that would basically surround the clubhouse, and that would include the building of the clubhouse. Is that what their recommendation, and is that what the applicant agreed to? And maybe if Drew can draw in there what the recommendation of the planning commission was, and obviously the part on Horizon Drive next to Highland Park, that is an existing road, but it'd be helpful. I think I have the benefit of having been to the planning commission meeting when this was discussed, but I think it's helpful to bring everybody kind of up to speed on what that recommendation was.
So the 9 lots do surround the community center there. And yes, it did also include the build out of that community center if Coal West so wished to do so.
This is Councilman Ivy. Can you answer a couple of things that I have questions on? First is, what's the fire chief, what's his position on this? Community's getting quite large, and there's one in, one out as of right now, and maybe address where we're at on acquiring property for that road that is mentioned will go down off the side of the hill.
Is Chief Evans on the line? I don't want to put words in his mouth, but
So Chief Evans is not on the line tonight, but
He is.
Oh,
He's here.
are you on? Okay.
Yeah, it's a great question. The fire code actually requires a secondary access at 30 units in a neighborhood. Obviously, if I remember correctly, the existing is 260, I believe, that they have, that they're extending past that. And so that's where that piece came from with regards to that secondary access. If I heard the 260, I don't know if that was a good guess or if Drew's just saying I'm correct, but thanks. Obviously, as they extend that past, there's a couple ways as far as to do that, and the planning commission felt it was best to get that into a full access road just because of the sheer amount of units up there, and as you asked, a second way out for all the people that will reside up on there.
The planning commission, they did have a lengthy discussion. It was very concerning. There was some talk about there being kind of 2 funnel points out to Telegraph, but then again, the bottom line is that it all funnels into the one road onto Telegraph, which kind of stresses the need for this secondary access to be done.
Well, and I guess what my thoughts are is when you have one access, if it could be blocked by a crash or any type of chemical spill, and second access is probably something that fundamentally should have probably been brought about a long time ago, is my opinion.
So Chief Evans, this is Councilman Mundy. So that would be your concern of those type of things, emergencies that where there would be no secondary access.
Yeah, and that's specifically what the fire code is addressing, is just that if you had a problem up in that area, and really, a traffic accident's a good example that would clearly block that road. So the code actually takes it the other step. That secondary access is really supposed to be at least half the diagonal of a project away from the first access. So putting another access where they have it, shown in their map would really meet all that. And of course, there's lots of examples of situations. If you put anything at the front of that, that existing area up there already, trying to get everybody out of it could present lots of problems, even if the road is still open and we're trying to get emergency vehicles in. And that's really specifically what the fire code is looking at, is really just that emergency side of things, not just the practical piece of, as you had mentioned, about having a secondary access because there's just so many homes up there.
So when I was reviewing this, I took into account what the planning commission said on the 9 units, and I have a couple concerns. One is the access. I'm more concerned that it's a double single access, because in the middle it pinches down as well to a single access. So you have 2 single accesses within the development, and it's kind of the nature of the lands with given you. You couldn't get more than one through that middle piece. So I don't like the fact that we would be now saying we're going past that point without a secondary access that's coming down where Drew is designed and built, ready to go out to bid, apparently, on his yellow line. So, but I have that concern. And then my other concern is just kicking it down the road. So we build 9 lots and then, okay, what if that second access doesn't go? How far do we keep kicking this down the road? We don't have control, and I know the developer doesn't have control, but we can't put our residents at risk without having that secondary access.
Yeah, do we have a representative from the developer here? I'd be interested. Yeah, would you mind coming forward and just state your name? And my question for you would be, what does the 9, what does that do for you to have the ability to put in 9, and then what help does that give you?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Appreciate the opportunity to answer that question. I'll just be direct to that question.
For the record, though, can I have you state your name?
Sorry. Yeah, my name is Drake Howell. I represent Co-West Home.
Thank you.
Vice President of Development for the company. And I'll just answer that direct question because I'm sure there's other questions tonight. And I obviously want to give you as much of our gusto that we can give you, because we're very excited about Solis, and we can tell you more about the character of the development if I have a chance to come back up to the podium. We certainly did not lead in the planning commission. Councilmember Staley was there and he can attest, and anyone else who is listening can attest. We certainly didn't lead in our request or in our application to the commission with 9 lots. I mean, it's fairly obvious that we would want as many lots up there in our development prior to the trigger of a secondary access. So the 9 lots was and I don't want to speak for the commission, but as the applicant interpreting what the commission conditioned us in their recommendation, that was kind of the least common denominator. That was like or I should say that was the maximum amount of lots that they wanted to see over and above the already 270 lots that are in Highland Park that have been there for years without another way out.
And so I think it was just, they did that, and I think I can kind of try and guess why they did it as well. But what I'm asking is, what does that do for you? Is that
sure?
It seems to me like, the kind of kick the can analogy is very appropriate. Does that help you?
It does. It does. Does it help us a ton? Not as much as we'd like it to help us, but what it does do for us is this. It's very simple. It gets us approved with a condition. That motivates us to invest more capital into this development and start, so that we can start sales start getting a little bit of revenue from the subdivision before there's a trigger to spend more money to facilitate a secondary access. So is it as much as we would like? Obviously not, but it gets us started. And I guess let me just kind of insert here, council, if I may. This particular piece, and Councilman Coates addressed it or kind of touched on it, is part of the Coral Canyon Master Plan. It's a very challenging piece from a development perspective. Councilman Coates already pointed out the topography of the Washington Black Ridge there next down, right? So that's the concern about kind of two pinch points there, one there and then one down at Telegraph. And so the original master transportation plan for Coral Canyon, when you look at it, it's very interesting. It has all of the roadway circulation on the Washington Black Ridge ending in a cul-de-sac on the north end of the ridge. There's no secondary access contemplated in the original Coral Canyon Transportation Master Plan. The other element is in the development agreement that we have with the city that we inherited, right, as a predecessor developer from the original developer, is there's a very clear paragraph in the development agreement that places responsibility for roads on the developer within property. This secondary access is certainly without property. It's outside of our control. And that's kind of to the point where we're doing everything we can, because we hear the concern. We totally support fire life safety. And so knowing this concern, we've actually been visiting with the Sullivans, who are the current owners of our neighboring property. We've been visiting and collaborating, more than visiting. We have a preliminary conceptual alignment of a secondary emergency access that would come off the west side towards Sienna Hills into a potential neighboring developer. And they're here tonight if we need to talk with them. And we've been working with Sitla as well, who would potentially be the final connection to Grapevine Crossing there in Sienna Hills. So we're working and doing everything we can to make the alignment and the access possible. And our objective tonight, if we were to have our wish come true, our objective tonight would be to have an approval with the condition that places a responsibility to have all the specific details, the engineering. By the way, our engineer is here tonight as well. The engineering, the alignment, the character of this access worked out, and we would memorialize that in amendment to our development agreement. So
I think we probably have some more questions from council.
Sure.
But I personally, since I've been on the council, we've been very strict about the safety protocols with the dual access. And I realize that we're all, council included and yourself included, we're all inheriting kind of a problem where we've already gone past what the current city code allows there. So, but I'll defer to other council members to ask questions.
So, Mr. Howell, did you say that there's representatives from the Sullivan family here?
No, I don't think the Sullivans are representing here, but there's a group, a developer who is under contract, I believe, on the lower Sullivan parcel. And we've been working with them as far as what this alignment could be, what the character is. They and we prefer, and that's what our engineer has put together. The code, as the chief has pointed out, requires another way out and in to have fire apparatus get up to that ridge, right? And so the alignment and the plan, the conceptual plan, certainly, preliminary, shows us coming down. Let me, if I can go point really fast to the screen. Coming down this already existing cut in the slope, there's two there. When you're driving north on the freeway, you can see this one that's kind of closer to the freeway, and this one as well. This one's pretty steep, and this one's a little more gradual. And so our alignment would be found kind of in that southern existing cut, and it would wind down to the lower Sullivan parcel.
Drew, are you driving the map? Can you follow what he's saying and help draw that in?
Well, he went out of screen, but I think let me try to draw just by what I'm pretty sure he was talking about coming down here.
Yeah.
Then heading down.
Yeah. And the preliminary alignment that we've shown is secondary access, emergency access. It's a 25-foot right of way with a 25-foot improved paved section. So it would allow for a fire apparatus.
Could
to
you,
get up and
could
down.
you point out where it eventually gets back into Sitla land, right? So
Yeah,
about where is that?
Just,
Do you know?
just barely. So I'll get off the screen here in a minute. Well, maybe Drew's going there, but like right there, Grapevine Crossing Road ends just about where, well, not anymore, but right where the word Grapevine is there, the existing pavement ends just about there. And the Sitla piece, and I don't want to speak for him, Aaron Langston with Sitla, I notice, is in the back here, but the Sitla Nexus, and I think he really has development partners that will really be the ones executing this, but the Sitla Nexus is the road that goes east to west to the, or kind of east and west, but the existing pavement for connecting to a improved road today would go east there to the roundabout. Does that make sense?
It does, but let me just clarify a little bit further down on my question. As far as the Sullivan, you've had conversation with them to acquire the property or their right of way to improve it?
Yes, the latter, to improve it. And we have a letter from them that we could submit to, as you know, for the record, that they've signed and that they're working with us to find an alignment and an improvement of an access down to
So
their
this
property.
road would specifically be for emergency crews, or would it be for?
That's correct. And that's what the
Emergency
fire
crews.
code requires.
It would be a general public road. It's not just for emergency crews. It's not a crash gate. It's a full access public road down the hill.
What we've been proposing is an emergency access with a, so it would become an improved trail with a crash gate. So not a normal road up and down.
That's totally different than what we've been talking about here. We've been talking about fully improved road, not a trail.
Understood.
Yeah, and in relation to that, I don't know if you know this, Mr. Howell, but maybe this is a question for Public Works, and without me looking, where is the master planned road? Do we have a master plan?
There isn't
road
one.
showing
This
that?
would make this discussion, in our opinion, so much easier had there been an existing master plan road, but it's absent. There, I should say this though, in all, from what I know, and this is just me, you can certainly have Mr. Shaw weigh in. On the Coral Canyon master transportation plan or master plan, there is no contemplated road to the west. So next door to the Coral Canyon PCD is the Sienna Hills PCD. The Sienna Hills PCD shows a road that comes out in the Sullivan piece up to the ridge line. But what's interesting about it is that the Sullivan piece is not part of the PCD. So it was drawn there, but Sitla couldn't force the Sullivans to put it in.
And Councilman Bundy, the city's transportation master plan does not identify every road that'll eventually be built.
I appreciate that,
but-
but I know there's kind of a major road that's going to go through Sitla in the development area down on the lower side. And of course, with this on the top, I just wondered if it might have shown there. I didn't take the time to look, but.
Yeah. Well, if Councilman Coates raises that issue about kind of a public, like at least a lane in each direction potential road there. We understand that the council wants, input on what happens here. And really, we were hoping to get that tonight. And so this is very helpful to us. I think in response to that question, or kind of what you were anticipating, I'm not sure if that was what all the council was anticipating, but the requirement that would be placed on us as a developer for that subdivision, if we were to be approved, is to have a secondary emergency access. The requirement isn't to have a public road as another way out. That would be over and above the requirement. And so if we needed to go there, we're certainly supportive of that. It would have the potential of exacerbating the scar, the cut and the slope there that's already, but we would certainly work with the city. We would just make the request that if we were financially responsible for this, that our responsibility, think of a pipeline, right? Our responsibility would be for what was required on the subdivision, a 20-foot wide paved access for fire apparatus. And then any delta to a public
on,
road
let's back
would
up
be
there.
something that would be shared by the city.
Let's back up. You're saying what's required is a 20-foot wide access, but what's required is a public road.
That's nowhere in the Washington Code. The only thing in the Washington City Code is the International Fire Code that would be a 25 or 20-foot wide road. There's no requirement in the subdivision ordinance for a public secondary access.
That's my understanding as
there's-
well. Can we
there's
look
no
to council
understanding
or
there.
legal counsel? Are you prepared to speak to that?
What's your question?
Sorry, well, and maybe
Question
the fire marshal is maybe
So if the question is, does this applicant have to build the
requirement is it?
a fully accessible public road that meets the city's specs for dedicated roads?
No, just whether or not it has to be a full spec'd out road or if it just has to be something that a fire truck can actually traverse.
Correct. And then I was going to say, or just something that allows emergency access.
Right.
There's nothing in the city code that requires that they build a secondary access that's a fully designed and fully compliant public road. I think that when we talk with Public Works and even the applicant, it can be acknowledged that a fully accessible public road may make sense at this location. And that it may be desired from the council that, a secondary access for emergency services would also have public access, especially when you look at the number of units that are going to be built on that property and the traffic flows. It may make sense that a fully developed public road be there, but the code doesn't require that this applicant provide that.
Yeah, if I could weigh in, I mean, just from my personal view is, there is the safety question, a 20-foot, whatever is required by code could satisfy that. But there is another element there, and that is circulation. It would be well for, in fact, I live in an area where I have neighbors just through the block from me, and I have to drive a quarter of a mile up around the corner to get there. And I see here, if there's not a full width street, a regular public roadway there, then all residents there are going to have to be funneled to one location as opposed to being able to go down into the development that's already occurring down further south, the Sienna area. So circulation is, in my mind, is important as well. It's not just that, because it'll benefit the residents that live there. Not only the residents that are already there, but the residents that will be there in the future on the northern portion to be able to go down. There's going to be a lot of commercial area there where they wouldn't have to traverse all the way through the existing subdivision. So just another thought there.
Yep, makes sense. It's very rational. Understand that. I think, from a developer's perspective, we hear that, makes a lot of sense, Councilman Bundy. We're looking at the bigger, fuller picture of our financial position into this development. As we reviewed a few minutes ago, it's potentially one of the most challenging planning areas that was contained in the Coral Canyon Master Plan. Not just for this reason, but there's also no water service here. So the existing Grapevine water tank that we all pass on the freeway at the pass, Grapevine Pass, that you see up there on the hill, literally just north of our property that we control, it's on the Sullivan piece. Well, maybe the Sullivan's deeded that to the city. You know what I mean, though. That tank in relative elevation to our lots is too close. So there's no head pressure, so there's no water service. And so in order for us and the Sullivans to the north of us to develop anything on this Black Ridge north of Highland Park, we have to build an entirely new water tank, which we are also pursuing. And we've been working for probably 2+ years with Washington City Public Works to make that happen. We facilitated the transfer of property from Sitla to the city in the Habitat Preserve north of the freeway for this tank site. So that's happened. You'll recall this body in January approved a water zonal impact fee to help finance the construction of that tank. And what that zonal impact fee is at the time, based on engineers' estimate, the zonal impact fee would have been $2,200 over and above the citywide water impact fee, which is, I think, in the $2,300 range today. I may be off on that number. So it would be the $2,300 citywide plus the $2,200 water zonal impact fee, plus the conservancy district. So it's getting a little bit, steep to pull a permit to build up here. So after the council approved that, and I think it was January, February, the zonal impact fee, we went full board to finish the engineering. Lester Dalton has been a huge partner working towards getting it real, making the water tank construction happen. The plans were finished, finalized, approved by the city. Public Works bid it out in May. Bids were opened in a public bid opening on the 18th of May. And the lowest bidder was nearly $800,000 over the estimate, what the city had budgeted. And so Public Works invited us in, broke the news. What do you want us to do? And we asked if they, and I don't know if, I don't want to speak for him, and I'm sure Mr. Shaw can weigh in here, but we asked Mr. Shaw to revisit that with you as a council to update the water zonal impact fee to cover the budget bust. And so if that happens, I think he's asked Sunrise to update their study. It wouldn't be a $2,200, over and above the citywide. It would probably be in the range of $4,600 over and above the citywide impact fee. Sorry about all that story. I don't mean to bore you, but I guess I just communicate that to express just how expensive it's becoming to develop on this Washington Black Ridge in kind of fulfillment of what the master plan 20 years ago had contemplated. And so just from a financial perspective, that's why we wanted to emphasize or just kind of make that known is from a pure requirement perspective of what would be needed for access to develop up there. Our understanding, which it sounds like the city attorney confirmed, is that we would need to provide that minimal secondary emergency access. And if the city council was of the interest to make that a wider character, a wider section, that financial burden, we're happy to work with our contractors to build it, but that the financial burden wouldn't be on the backs of us and these units that are going up there. You can picture it this way. Had the secondary access been as keen of a concern when the original developer had approached the city, and I recognize former council 15 years ago with 267 lots plus the 233, it's certainly
I hate to go
much
too
easier
far
to
back.
amortize.
I realize that's where we're at, and but we're kind of both in the same position. So
yeah.
we just kind of need to work through it.
And council, just to
Leanna-
clarify,
yes.
it was not my opinion that the city must accept financial burden. If the council finds that it's in the nature of the public interest for a proposed development to provide a public road, you can make that requirement of the developer. This is a problematic area. So it wasn't, my comments were not meant to suggest that the city has the financial burden of putting a road in there if this council finds that a road is needed in there. Now, typically when a city wants a road or needs a road, they either plan for it and have the developers build it as they develop their surrounding land, or they go and acquire the rights of way and easements and construct it on their own. But my comments today weren't going so far as to suggest financial obligation or responsibility for this particular parcel.
And I certainly didn't mean to communicate anything to that. I totally agree with you, city attorney.
Any other questions or discussion?
If I could just one more little observation here. The emergency access portion of it, is important. But I guess in my view, just from a planning standpoint, it makes sense to try to have a public roadway that goes all the way through, that loops all the way through there. But that doesn't necessarily mean that this developer would necessarily do that. We don't require developers to go off from their land to make the connection, but the development to the below that comes up and goes through that land would, probably be the ones that would need to participate in that. But the emergency access, which it sounds like, that's understood by everyone that probably needs to happen. So there's two different things: the public roadway all the way through, the emergency access, the public roadway all the way through. I think from good planning standpoint we should be looking at that happening at some point in time, but it may not necessarily be this developer. Does that make sense?
Well, that's good clarification, and I think it's good to point out.
We also have to account that none of this has been addressed in Hillside and how it gets addressed, because this is a hillside area. So I keep thinking it's just a little early on this. I mean, we got Hillside to look at that road to see if it works. But what if it comes back and it's not even feasible as far as a hillside aspect? I don't know. We don't have anything to review, or we haven't had a hillside committee looking at it. There's just a lot of different things that are ifs. And so. That's a good point.
And all of those factors are what would play into a council's decision as to whether approval of a proposed plat or development at that location was in the best interest of the public.
My opinion on that is that it's a hard ask with a lot of variables that we don't know. It's hard to put that on the backs of existing residents that they are very aware that there's already in excess of the safety numbers as far as secondary entrance and exit. I just see that as a hard ask. I think that we need to be more definitive, and instead of adding to the problem, I think we need to address the roadway. I can't see how this can work, and I could feel good about approving it myself because of for me, it's a glaring safety concern. I mean, you think, well, that would never happen, but it could. And as our duty, part of our duty as city council is to be aware of those things, and addressing them is what we base those decisions on, is our own codes and our own policies that we implement through the city for public safety. So as badly as I always want to work hard with our developers and to be a partner in that, for me, this is really just a hard ask of the citizens that are there. But yet I do recognize that this was master planned and there was an omission of a second exit, or it wasn't talked about then, but I don't think that takes away the responsibility of having one.
If I could make one more comment, and just to clarify, I was here when this was originally approved, and there was discussion about a second access. I remember it very distinctly. We go back to minutes and look at that. I was a council member at the time when Coral King and overall was developed, was approved, the PCD, and there was discussion about a second. And I know you don't know that. Probably no one in the room knows that, including Sitla representatives, but and probably no one here.
And I knew, right? Well, at least that you were on the council then when this was approved, but not specifically about the second.
That's all. I'm just trying to point that out.
I'm making a
There
light,
was
I'm sorry.
discussion, so it wasn't like it wasn't.
Any other questions or points of discussion?
Yeah.
I actually, and I'd like the applicant to be able to address anything else that he has, but I do have a question for Public Works, and it's more in the line of water. Mike, are you on the line?
I am.
So this first phase of Solus proposes 40 lots. The applicant, I understand, was hoping for at least 30. The Planning Commission recommended 9. My question is where we have a zonal impact fee that meets what we thought a water tank would cost, and we're understanding that the water tank would cost more now. Realistically, how many lots could we serve with existing water there before a new tank is built?
0. We're at the limit right now. That existing road that's to the north end of the existing housing, that is the limit.
And that's purely elevation, right?
Yeah. So the Grapevine well is too close in proximity and in elevation. So the new well would be built and then pumped, but so we wouldn't be able to source the water at this point anyway. Okay. That's what
it's the storage tank. It's the elevation of the storage tank. We couldn't meet fire flows.
Yeah. That's
Horizon Parkway. That would be our limit.
Okay. Thank you.
A couple of questions for staff as well here. So we've got a couple of items on the table here. One is the overage in the water tank, and the proposal I'm understanding would be that the staff would come back to the council to have an increase on that water zone. Is that correct? Is that how that would work?
Yes.
Okay. And so, and then the hillside for the road, help me understand, like in process, I'm just not, I can't remember a time when we had those kind of things kind of, we're asking for approval on something where those kind of things hadn't taken place. Talk to me about normal process and what we would need to do or how that process would come forward.
Drew, can you talk about that as far as the
Yeah.
Hillside Committee?
Yeah, what I'll, in this one, you can not agree with staff on this, is that the hillside has exemptions in it as well. Any projects are already approved and put in before that new hillside went in are exempt from the hillside. And so, you know, I would consider that the Coral Canyon area laid out the way it was already. Just felt that it probably fall under the exemption on that. Now, you could, if you just wanted for the roadway to be looked at by your hillside, I could see where that could be probably made available on its design.
Okay.
If I could comment on that, I guess my question would be, what would it states in the development agreement? Because normally it would be indicating, I would think that, and I haven't read that for 20 years, but you know, normally it would indicate that, you know, a development would have to follow city standards and perhaps even to the date that they're doing it, not necessarily 20 from what it was 20 years ago. I don't know that, but it would be bear looking into to see, just so that we're not making those exceptions on the hillside. Just another question. I thought it was, maybe Mr. Howell, you might be able to mention this. It seemed like in the planning commission or somewhere I saw something where there was some discussion about setbacks from the ridge top. Is
Yeah.
that?
No, I appreciate that, Councilman. But if you look closely, and it's hard because it's such a big area, but if you were to zoom in, and maybe I can go and point it out and then come back and talk, I'm going to point out a solid dash line. So the line I just pointed out, one of the very first things we did as we approached the land planning of this ridge was the respect for the hillside. When you read the city ordinance, there's a large amount of respect for prominent ridge lines. Certainly the Washington Black Ridge, formal term, right? That's what it's called, is a prominent ridge line in the city. So one of the first steps that we took as we approached the planning was to respect that prominent ridge line. And so that line I pointed out, it's actually not as dark as I thought. It's more of a charcoal, but it's dashed and it's pretty it's pretty bold. That's a 50-foot setback from the prominent ridge line. And so we approached it in.
So comments that I've heard from individuals speaking directly about the ridge line and respecting the ridge line, you've mitigated that by putting a 50-foot setback in those areas where the dotted line is.
But it means we can't have something built. A home will not be built within 50 feet of that prominent ridge line.
So 50 feet from the downhill slope. So I guess my concern is I can't visualize that and I can't see that, but none of those houses would then be above that ridge line then, or blocking.
No, the foot dimension that I'm pointing out isn't a vertical dimension. It's a horizontal dimension.
That's what I'm hearing.
And so if you were to go and walk the prominent ridge line that you see there, you know, going up and walk it, if you were to stand on that ridge line and then turn around towards the middle of the development, a home would not be built within 50 feet of that dimension of where you were standing.
So I got a question for you then, Mr. Howe. It looks as if you're building a ridge line above it, because homes are 10 feet above the prominent red line. So what are you going to do with that slope that you're filling along that slope?
Yeah, it's a fill slope. Correct. But the building is offset of that ridge line.
I understand the building's off the ridge line, but you're making an artificial ridge line back about that 50 feet with 10 feet of fill. What are you going to do to address that ridge line slope that you're creating?
Well, I mean, you can see it's a fill slope where the grading requires that to be, filled in. The development up there is in hard rock basalt. And so, we're trying to not be as deep into our trenches, into the basalt. I can let Jason Smith address that specific question as far as what the slope is going to be, how it's going to be treated. If Jason, if you want to address that.
So, so there won't be, so you have the 50-foot setback and you do have fill on the back side of that. And it will, but it'll be a fill that is not a visible fill from, the reason that you have a 50-foot setback is for the view from the bottom, correct? So that view is, you're not creating a steep slope. You've reached your ridge line and then the fill comes back.
I understand that. How are you going to dress it? How are you
How are
going
you
to
gonna dress it?
Are you going to landscape it or are you going?
I
I get the slope.
It took a minute for my brain too to process. that.
I'm just, what I don't want to see is I don't want to see a slope of weeds on the
Yeah,
ridge and
got
you're
it.
creating an artificial ridge. So my question
yeah.
is, how are you going to dress it
Sorry. I missed-
landscaping wise?
Yeah, my brain wasn't there either.
Sorry.
Councilman Coach, I apologize. It will not be a slope of weeds. We'll be hydroseeding that. It will be the desert flora and fauna and it won't be an eyesore.
So you're going to water that desert landscaping? Because I know how well hydroseed works around here.
Yeah.
I'm concerned that it's going to be weeds because that's what happens on a lot of these slopes unless it's watered and maintained for at least a few years till it establishes itself. So that's another concern I have, is that slope being addressed because of the elevation that it's at and it's sticking up. And I get the basalt and the rock and dealing with those grades and grading that. I just think it needs to be addressed on those rims, how it's going to be addressed.
Yep.
I mean, it could be, you're going to generate basalt rock that gets crushed and you line it with landscape rock or something just to color it, to blend in with the natural rock that's there.
Yeah. Well, in Highland Park itself, you can see some pretty fair fill slopes and they are treated with like a 6-inch minus. So it looks nice. Yep.
Mike, I want to revisit the water question again for just a minute. If this plat were approved tonight, what would be the process? What would be the things that would have to be accomplished in order to bring water to this development? How would that play out?
So we have to follow the state rules on adopting or amending that impact fee. So we have a little bit of time that's involved with the public noticing and the public hearing. We did want to bring it back to council and get your okay to move ahead with that, but we kind of was wanting to see where this plat was going as well, because if the plat isn't getting approved, we don't need to move very quickly on the tank as well. So, but that would be our next steps in it. We could give conditions that they could start the development in there, but no approval on the homes or building permits will be issued until we actually have adequate water supply.
And with the zonal impact fee that would need to be readdressed because of the increased cost of the tank, basically the city, does it work that the city would fund and build the tank, and then the zonal impact fee would reimburse the cost of that tank as the lots build out?
Correct.
So
there's also a little concern that, you know, the economy tanks, we still are paying for a tank, but lots aren't being built. But I mean, I guess that's over time we would get our money back, but we would basically be bankrolling the tank until we're reimbursed.
Right. That was kind of what I was getting at and asking just for clarification. There's a lot of things I like about this subdivision, but there's a few things that are just really, really hard. And that's kind of where I'm at, gentlemen.
Yeah, it's been a good discussion. I appreciate the setbacks. I think there was also some comments and some discussion about the difference in setbacks between this area and other areas. I worry about some of those smaller details because when we get into these big details, we get so consumed in them and we finally get past them and we can miss those. So I appreciate those being brought forward, but I'm still kind of, I'm clear how the zonal impact with fee would work. And I'm fairly clear on how the we have some decisions to make both through Hillside as well as the council as to whether or not that needs to be an access road or not.
And what the access road looks like.
Exactly. Yeah. Is this going to be a crash gate, or is it just going to be, is it going to be something for the residents? My problem here is I don't know that we've made the case that these 9 houses are going to benefit the issue. The way I'm seeing it is we could basically have the houses be put in there, and the crushing burden of the water and the road could basically just stop the project from moving further forward. We risk it kind of both ways. So that's, although I guess the community, well, maybe have the applicant speak to this, because would you be building the clubhouse as well? 9 houses and a clubhouse?
That would be our intent. The Co-West Way is to start with our amenity. It's a great way to start our developments. That's what we typically do. And our
That
intent,
clubhouse would be for that
soulless
section
residents. This would be
only.
entirely separate
So
from
if you
the
couldn't
master
fund and you
HOA.
couldn't build the rest of it, then that'd be the coolest clubhouse for those 9.
Be the coolest clubhouse for 9 residents in the history of development. I mean, you understand, I mean, there's certainly, it's a big risk for us to do that. That's obviously why we'd like more than 9 lots, but we understand, the hesitation there. Our biggest objective, our biggest request, if we could make it tonight, just to be clear, is we understand that there's the kind of the finite, the engineering details and the easements and the permission and that needs to be finalized, right? Could a condition of approval, if the council were to approve this tonight, be this amended development agreement that would in great detail outline exactly what the character of the secondary access road is, whose responsibility is, to do what of what. And then we could move forward in as much as the original master plan didn't contemplate a way off of this ridge. We feel it's appropriate to amend the existing development agreement and work with staff, work with community development, work with public works, and work with certainly our neighbors whose property this is, continue working with them, I should say, to get a plan that, whether it needs to go to Hillside or wherever to get
Can
that
we direct
finite
that
detail.
question to staff? What would staff's recommendation be on a road there? Do we?
So an
have any-
example would be if you took a property in the fields where the applicant knew that they had to build a road that would connect to a neighboring road someday, but neither plot had been developed, you would get a plat that would show a public road to their boundary line. The challenge that the council has is in this situation, that's not a
Right,
very
it's true, that's a
satisfying
secondary
solution.
issue because we're past the normal 30 units that we would do. So I guess my question to staff is probably more to the roads and streets and just master plan. Do we have an opinion as the staff as to whether or not this should just be a simple road, or the city should invest in a full access road?
Well, I won't speak for Mike, but I don't think we spent a lot of time discussing that issue. And so I think,
Is it staff's opinion that the council would be making that decision?
well, I think it could be like anything else where we could bring you a recommendation, and we could certainly work on language that would amend the PCD agreement. So we could bring it back and have an amendment to the agreement that might give some more clarity if that works for everybody.
Well, that's the part that kind of is hanging out there for me so much. With the investment on the part of the developer with the clubhouse up there, I'm that's at least one step in their favor, that they're really investing in that community up there and signaling that they're going to go. But it doesn't mean that they're going to stay financially viable over the term in order to make that happen.
So on the master plan, part of what is reflected on the master plan reflects the date that it was adopted. And so in this area, the only master plan roads that are shown on the master plan is Washington Parkway, Telegraph Road, and then the next one to the east is Coral Canyon Boulevard. So literally the city hasn't taken an in-depth study of the areas between Parkway and Coral Canyon Boulevard to determine master planned roadways in there. And maybe that's a step that should be planned and discussed. But yeah, the current master plan and its date of adoption didn't contemplate what we're seeing happen in this area. And as a result, the connections and the transportation issues weren't contemplated at that time either.
Well, and so we're
Mayor-
at this point where we're trying to make a determination on an application. But we don't know, we don't even know what the city's opinion on that roadway is.
Mayor Pro Tem, if I could just quickly input, and I apologize for interrupting, but in the spirit of, if there's a risk mitigation measure that we could offer as far as this question, hey, the market tanks, we see another great recession, obviously heaven forbid. But in the worst case scenario, we'd certainly be willing to place a performance bond, in favor of the city as a beneficiary, that if we left and we go south and there's no longer a Coal West entity, that, the city's not left holding the bag.
Okay, so help me understand how that would work. I'm looking to staff, put them on the spot on that.
You asking me?
Well, I'm kind of looking over here to see if Jeremy wants to assign it to somebody or if he wants to tackle it himself or.
So bonds can be required in the development process frequently on, let's say there's a road that's being built, but it's not going to be completely built because of whatever the conditions are of the site. It can be required of the developer, and almost always is, that they post a bond that guarantees the construction and payment for all of the materials to install the public infrastructure that would be required to be built. And so I think what Mr. Howell is suggesting is that the applicant would be willing to post an appropriate bond that guarantees that the construction of access that the council finds is appropriate for this location would be at least financially guaranteed. The challenge you have is the legal right to build on somebody else's property can't be conveyed at this room. And that's one of the reasons why this is complex.
Yeah.
And professional staff, the way that we transportation plan is by the study and preparation and then publication of master plans. And until the staff has gone through the process to publish an updated master plan that would include this area, the decision as to whether the public interest requires a public road at this location sits with this council, not with the professional staff. And so I know that the council likes to have master plans that have been prepared and published to rely upon, but the fact of the matter is this area hasn't been studied or officially published or master planned by city staff.
Well, and it sounds like the staff hasn't really considered this fully, even to make a recommendation.
Well, I'm sure individual staff members have opinions and would be happy to make recommendations, but they're also bound by just the law and process of master planning. And the reality is this area has not been master planned for roads beyond what our 2014 plan showed. And so the council, with their authority as the elected representatives of the citizens, are the ones that hold the responsibility and also the burden of making a decision as to what the public interest requires in this location.
Yeah.
So where the bonding is a good idea, and I think it's a very good option. We don't even know yet what that bond would require until we come up with a plan for what either the applicant or the city would be building at that time that the roadway goes in.
So an approval would need to have an amended, another consideration there for the bond without even a dollar amount attached to it.
And without really even knowing what exactly.
And land that's not owned by
exactly.
either entity.
Okay.
Yep. And we're already over our 30 by a fair piece. Comments? I'd be ready for a motion if somebody was so inclined.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'll make a motion that we deny application 6A, consideration to approve the preliminary plat for the Solace at Coral Canyon, located approximately 1500 North Highland Parkway, for the reasons of not enough water pressure. And I know the water pressure is being handled with a tank, but only approving 9 lots at this time is not responsible to construct a overly priced tank based on the current market for 9 lots. And then the concerns of the secondary access not being identified. And the zonal impact fee has not been reevaluated by council.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Mayor Pro Tem, I will second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. I'll look for a roll call vote. Councilman Staley?
Staley, aye.
Oh, I'm not used to being, let's see there, Ward, aye.
Ivy, aye.
Coates, aye.
Bundy, aye.
I was going to vote last. I'm still thinking I should be able to do that. Okay. Well, the motion passes there. I do appreciate the discussion and working through some of these issues. I appreciate a lot of input from the citizenry. A lot of people in favor of this, but also recognizing some difficulties. We had a lot of helpful conversation from the applicant and the as well as council and staff. Kind of some difficult issues there. We'll look to move on to item 6. 6B, consideration to approve a preliminary plat for Desert Ridge Phase 1. Look to Eldon again. This is Steve Howcroft's property.
Thank you, council. The applicant is requesting approval of a preliminary plat for Desert Ridge Phase 1 subdivision. It's located approximately Bella Vista Drive and 200 South. The applicant is proposing 49 townhomes on an area coverage of 6.97 acres. The zoning designation at this particular location is Planned Unit Development Residential. The surrounding zoning is PUD residential to the north, east, south, and west. The proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning. The request meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinances as it relates to this location. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of the preliminary plat as outlined. The Planning Commission reviewed this application on May 19th, 2021 and unanimously recommended approval of the preliminary plat for the Desert Ridge Phase 1 subdivision based on the following findings and subject to the following standard conditions. And we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Council, any questions?
The question I had is this, I mean, we looked at the original PUD zone that was approved, and this is just a different layout than what was previously looked at and approved by by the council. So I'm just curious, the change and the need, does this have to go back? I mean, I'm just surprised it doesn't have to go back for a PUD amendment, not a preliminary plat at this point. So I'd ask staff if that's not the case.
Drew's kind of got the back story on this. I'll let him pipe in on this one.
I'll be glad to jump in on this one. I think we discussed this. This is actually the second time you've seen this preliminary plat come before you. A couple months back, they actually were just proposing over here by the road that pops up this Florence Drive, as you see, where my little bouncing things going. And I explained then what happened on that change, because if you look at, and I know what Councilman Coates is referring to, especially over here between Florence and Bella Vista Drive, is that was a cul-de-sac setup of things, but of townhomes. But I also referenced to you gentlemen earlier the year that what was neglected in the whole PUD approval process back in 18 was it was forgot about this UAMPS power line that runs right along what we used to call Bonnie Lane, but it's being referred to as Desert Cactus Drive now. That's why you think those driveways are really deep, is because they are. There's a power easement that runs through there. Staff just felt that it was still in the intent that under the intent, it is a little bit different layout, but it's still townhomes that were approved along, again, the previous Bonnie Lane, now called Desert Cactus. And so That was made known to the planning commissioners. It was made known to the city council on the original first preliminary plat a couple months ago. So I hope that helps kind of answer that question, Councilman Coates.
It does help. I remember the discussion on the stuff to the west of Bella Vista Drive, and that was that discussion. But I think one of the things I'm a little concerned about is now that we have these, and it's called out as future parcels up the hill. I mean, are we totally changing everything that goes up the hill as well? Because that's not what the intent was, the original PC or PD.
Correct. Well, I was going to go up, the distance of that cul-de-sac and give them, what they would do is put another driveway up here and have another row of these townhomes right to the south. Now, but I will let you know that coming down the road, they are proposing a PUD amendment that's coming to you in a couple of weeks. That will kind of address this, and you'll be able to have your say at that point. That's why I didn't feel too uncomfortable knowing that you're gonna come back and see a proposed amendment here in the next couple of weeks anyway for stuff up the hill.
And that would be an amendment to the PCD.
PUD, yes.
Excuse me.
Yeah, it had its public hearing last week at Planning Commission. You'll see it 2 weeks from tonight. But I felt okay with this preliminary plat, getting Desert Cactus Road all taken care of, because that still follows the intent of what the original PUD was townhomes along that southern border of that Desert Cactus Drive.
So part of this application, the trail will be built as well on the north side.
It looks like they're putting that as part of this, yes. That looks like it's part of this subdivision.
Could I ask you, Drew, just a little logistical question with the name of the street, Desert Cactus Drive? That was approved as Bonnie Lane and 1100 East Road dedication some months ago. Is there a problem with us changing the name at this point in light of the fact that a roadway dedication plat was approved?
Probably not. We can make note. We'd make note at the final plat that you are officially changing that. What's good is there's no addresses off of it right now.
Okay.
And that's what the name of the road is to the east when you get into that desert flower development that you can't see on your screen over there. And that's the name of the road that they put there. Staff's fine with the change, but I don't think it'll hold anything up with you folks being able to then change that name when you do a final plat on this. Because you're the only ones who can change the name on a street, city council.
Drew, I'm trying to zoom in on the amenities.
Okay.
And I'm just having a difficult time. I mean, I can generally see what looks like a pickleball court and maybe grass and a pool, but can you or the applicant define those more clearly?
Yeah, I'll jump on real quick. This is a pool area to the right. This rectangle, let me get my fancy little pencil here for you. I'm just going to write a P on it for pool. And I shouldn't have done that because now I got 2 pickleball courts. So we'll go PB, and that's not for peanut butter. And then this is a sand volleyball court.
So it probably wasn't fair of me to bring this up, but I was at the planning commission, and I think when they bring this back next time with maybe a different style of these townhomes, I think they're going to also ask for a different amenity package there. But I at least wanted to know what we're looking at tonight, so that next time when it comes forward, that we'll know what they may be changing it to.
Well, and there's no mystery. There was a public meeting, and their PUD amendment did change the nature of the amenity. The reason for that is the original designed amenity was contemplating a nightly rental type use. And since that wasn't approved, they were changing to more of a community park type amenity. And so, yeah, there is a change in that amenity in the PUD agreement that you will see. I remember for sure the pool is removed, but I don't remember everything else offhand.
Yeah, they're going to include a park area with playground equipment for kids. They'll still have 2 pickleball courts, I think I remember. They're going to have a grass area. And I'm trying to remember, they'll have a pavilion with some barbecue pits in it. So I think you'll like the new proposal, but we have to use this one now because this is what's on the approved PUD. So,
And the planning commission's recommendation was to accept their amenity change. And so the planning commission unanimously recommended, as far as the amenities at least.
Yeah, if I recall right, that was the design of the townhomes, the amenity package, and then development further up the hill was what would be considered on the hills of this. So
yeah, up in this area where I'm starring is they're going to have a proposal for you.
it seems like on both sides, Drew, both sides.
Yeah, this is a single lot, single detached. Over here, I'm just going to write an SD, and it's a different layout from what the original was. They'll just show you what's going on with that and why. I hate to say that, but in 2 weeks you'll see those changes.
Hey, Drew, a quick question. This is Thad. On the right side of the preliminary plat where it mentions the street cross sections, you'll see the description for the Bonnie Lane widening boundary description. Does that title there need to be changed to Desert Cactus Drive widening?
Yeah, because the original plat, they showed Bonnie Lane, and I think everybody wants to get rid of the Bonnie Lane name, and they just forgot to update that. We apologize for that. They did get it on the plat, here on the street area itself, but not on the sectional. So they are proposing, Desert Cactus Drive. That should be updated.
That could be something that's updated on the final plat, or the council should note that would be updated on a final plat.
Is there any more discussion? I'm prepared to make a motion.
I will entertain it.
So I'll motion that we approve a preliminary plat for Desert Ridge Phase 1, located at approximately Bella Vista Drive and the road formerly known as Bonnie Lane, which is now known as Desert Cactus Drive, and that be updated on the documents of the preliminary plat to show Desert Cactus Drive.
Second by Coates.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Councilman Bundy?
Bundy, aye.
Coates, aye.
Ivy, aye.
Staley, aye.
Ward, aye. And we'll move on to item number 7. This is our public hearing. This is a public hearing for the consideration of approval of a zone change Z-21-12, a request to change from agricultural 20-acre lot size minimum to a residential agricultural half-acre lot size minimum. And the applicant is Washington City. I think we'll look to Eldon to address us on this.
Well, I'll take this one if that's okay, council.
Okay.
Eldon might be a little nervous because I wrote the report. The applicant asked today is requesting approval of the zone change of, again, approximately 1.14 acres from the Ag 20 to the RA half. The RA half requests for the purpose of removing the 1.14 acres out of the A20 zone in preparation of possible future sale of the parcel, which is owned by Washington City. This particular location has a general plan use designation of low density residential, which allows for R110 and R112 or greater zoning districts. The surrounding zoning of the parcel is RA half to the east, PUD to the north and west, and then Ag 20 to the south. Staff has no concerns with the proposed zone change as outlined. Planning Commission reviewed the request at their May 19th, 2021 meeting. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of Z-21-12 for the zone change request from A20, Ag 20 acre minimum, to the proposed residential agricultural half acre minimum, or we refer to as the RA half zoning district, onto you, the City Council, and this based on the findings in your report. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that the council might have on this proposal.
Council, any questions, or are we prepared to move into the public hearing portion?
I might just make a comment because I think I saw some question as to what could be built in an RA half, and it's low density residential. I think that's just important to mention because I think there's been some question in the public as to what could be built there, but It's a low density product similar to what's in the neighborhood next to it.
Yeah, if I may just add on to that, if that's all right. I chose the RA half just to match up with the subdivision to the east. That was purely the reason for it, because we didn't want to create a spot zone in there with the subdivision to the west being a PUD. Didn't want to make it go PUD because then they need a plan. It's pretty straightforward on these lots, so I just chose to go with the RA half to be consistent with surrounding property. Just for your information.
Tara, can you give me a count of any applicants that wrote in on this or submitted?
We did not receive any public comments on this item.
Okay, yeah, I think there were just some emailed comments. Counselor, are we ready to open this for public hearing?
Yes,
I'll entertain a motion.
we got it. Make a motion. We open the public hearing.
Thank you.
Typically, you can just open the public hearing, Mayor Pro Tem, and then the motion would be to close the public hearing.
Okay. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to the motion here? Please come forward. State your name.
Yeah, my name is Miranda Willits. I own lot 308 in Indian Knolls, which is just to the east of this plot. We're actually building our home right now. Our contention, and I know a lot of my neighbors are here tonight as well. Our contention is we all purchased our property with the expectation that that plot of land was zoned in a certain way. And our worry is that with this change in the way it will be zoned, that it could end up being essentially a dumping ground for farming equipment. That land that is actually privately owned beyond the part that the city owns right now. That this is just kind of a segue to get to that. But, you know, I mean, there are hundreds of homes probably in this neighborhood when you look at it all. And I know that all of my neighbors feel the same way, that we all have that expectation that, you know, we're not going to have this huge eyesore as we drive in and out of our, you know, out of our neighborhood each day. My lot, literally, if that happens, I'll be looking out my back windows. That my view. So, I mean, that's my concern is, you know, that we don't just look at the concern of one, but look at the, you know, concerns of many in that respect.
Do you mind if I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
So your concern with this is that the people will just move tracker equipment or other things in there. Is that because it's agricultural?
And I mean, to be honest, I've gotten lots of stories about this from different neighbors, but the land that is in the front is what the city owns, if I understand. Beyond that, further in, there's a private citizen that owns that land. And there is no access for his land because of the way it is right now. Obviously, he would like to have that changed. I mean, anybody who owns that land would. But if you can't even see on this picture that entire plot above, but I mean, it goes up into like a finger. I mean, it's pretty unusual. And I mean, and so the contention was, I mean, what will that actually be, you know, good for? And yeah, that was the worry of a lot of the neighbors, is that eventually it will, you know, kind of, because it is that agricultural rating, that they can just park all kinds of junk on it.
So currently that's what it is ag right now. And so the request
But
is
isn't
to
it the
change
20
it.
acre?
It's 20 acre, but
Yeah.
that means they could put one house on it.
Okay.
And that they could potentially
Mhm.
do what you said, they have more area to do other things than a home.
Okay.
The request is to change the zone to a half acre
Mhm.
minimum. So they still could put one house on it. They could put on this piece, probably two, because it's 1.14. There's also the constraints of the canal that's there as well. So there are some constraints, but I just want to make that clear to you that currently it is zoned as a 20 acre, but they could still put one house on it. And so
Okay, I guess yeah, I mean, just the way that it's all come through and, neighbors will talk. That's ultimately the concern. So,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
I'm Kevin Williams.
Okay,
and,
go ahead, just adjust that mic up,
Okay.
right, so you can speak into it, because
Uh,
people on the internet
Thank
can't hear us
you
at all.
so much. Kevin Williams and my wife Bonnie. We live on the corner of White Sands and Indian Springs. So we're in that home right in the middle in the front. There's been lots of crazy stuff going up on the hill. There's been blasting. We've actually have a crack in our dining room ceiling going from the kitchen and into the hallway. And I was showing one of the gentlemen that came that was gave 15-minute notice of the last blasting that took place 2-3 weeks ago. He's knocking on doors. He was there he said they were doing seismic activity and doing the foundation for Three Rivers that were doing blasting in the mountain. Anyway, he took pictures of our crack in our ceiling, wanted to make sure he came back after they did the blasting to see if it had gotten any wider. As they're pounding away at the mountain today, we heard all of our glasses in our cupboard jingling with each other. That's how crazy it is as they're packing down that road that's higher up. But so needless to say, we're really concerned with what's going to happen like right next door. I mean, if it got any worse, we would have some major problems with our home. So we understand that the master plan, there's no driveways that are supposed to be coming into Indian Springs. I don't know how you could access or build a home in that property you're talking about tonight if there's no access onto Indian Springs with the driveway, because they said the master plan, from what I understand, there's no a way to get into that property from Indian Springs. So it's kind of an odd piece of property. You got the canal. We've only been there a short time, but I mean, we love it. Our backyard's only 20 feet deep. Someone suggested from the city or the county council that maybe they would open it up, put it into some kind of a bid process, and the people that own those 3 homes right there would have an opportunity to, maybe extend their backyards. But that I can see that that's probably not going to be an option either. But I just wanted to express those concerns and
appreciate that. Thank you. Would it be fair to have staff maybe kind of address some of the history of what's going on with this?
Yeah, but not during
keep
the public hearing. You can finish the public hearing part and then you can close the hearing.
We've always been a little bit loose with that to kind of go back and forth. And
your question was, would it be appropriate? And my answer is yes, but after the public hearing.
Okay. I just think that in some cases, there's maybe some misunderstandings that we could actually feed to, but that's fine.
I think it's problematic to start maybe talking about what the development might look like at this point. The idea behind the city bringing up the zoning was in essence to try to help some of the issues that maybe
Right.
neighbors might have.
Right.
If it is going to be sold, we can zone it and then sell it so that we make sure we lock the zoning in with the sale. So that's really the issue tonight. And there will be lots of discussion, I'm sure, in the future as that property comes to be developed. But I would have a hard time talking to specifics right now because we don't have anything in front of us to look at.
One thing, or maybe 2 things, Mayor Pro Tem, is it is important to the public to know that a zone change does not have any bearing on access or legal rights of access. It's entirely a designation of permitted zoning that could influence a future application to change the use of this parcel. Also, Indian Springs Drive is not fully built. When the property to the south of Indian Springs Drive develops, additional accesses and roadways are likely to be proposed as part of that development. And so whether this property can be accessed from Indian Springs Drive was not addressed on the current version of the city's traffic master plan. But again, many roads are built that are not shown on the city's traffic master plan because they are presented to the city and the city staff review them and approve them per per city road and access management guidelines.
Okay, thank you.
Jared Bowler, I'm one of the neighbors as well. I own lot 310, which is just beyond the view, I think, in the upper portion of your map here. And I think I echo my neighbor's concerns. You know, we realize zoning probably will change, and going from Ag 20 to RA half probably doesn't really fundamentally change anything that can be built there or whatever. But the challenge is, and maybe this is the wrong meeting to address this, but we have the question of what does the city plan to do with that parcel of ground? If you're planning to sell it, what is the process going to look like? Is that going to be something that's going to happen behind closed doors, or is the public going to be notified and everybody get a chance to bid on it, or how does that happen? Because our concern again is that parcel connects the parcel above it or to the north of it that is a long skinny piece that, if built on, is really not, as it continues, it's so narrow, it's not going to be effective to build homes across all of it. So what you're going to end up with is one house and a long skinny piece of lot that goes right between two subdivisions. And the neighbors to the west are beneath it and are going to they're going to be viewing whatever is in that lot. And the neighbors above it, it's going to be what they view out their back patio doors. And the concern is that it is property that is perfectly constructed for somebody who owns a construction company, or somebody that wants to store pods or bales of hay or whatever it is behind there. And it could become an eyesore really easily and would frustrate both, about 10 homes across there, 10, 12, maybe even 15 homes that will have to look on that. And so that's the concern. I realize that zone change probably isn't going to address that, but that's the concern of the neighbors. That's the concern of both subdivisions right now. And many of the neighbors that are not even here tonight have that same concern.
And
you speak
I
to
can
that?
provide you an answer.
Okay.
Typically zone changes occur because there's a plan to use the land that the zone change is trying to justify or prepare for. In this situation, in the May 26th city council meeting, the regular meeting of the city council, item number 12B was, so the city council meeting 2 weeks ago was consideration to approve a real estate exchange agreement. This piece of property that's subject to the zone change was part of that real estate exchange agreement.
Okay. So is it under contract then?
The contract has not been signed by either party, but that contract was presented to the council and the council approved it with some minor changes to the agreement.
And this is getting into the weeds, but my understanding was the Iversons would have first right of refusal on that.
That's not correct, no. So this piece of property was taken by agreement from the Sandberg family, but they weren't the Sandbergs in the agreement. They were White Hills LLC or White Hills Development. I don't remember exactly what their entity name was. The city had commenced eminent domain process against them because they were unwilling to convey or sell to the city the right of way needed to connect Indian Springs Drive to the upper road there. I forget its name.
Seminole
Way. And so the city commenced the eminent domain process. Before that went to a order on immediate occupancy, the parties reached an agreement. The agreement was that the Sandbergs would sell to the city the right of way, but also the abandoned piece. The city was not legally obligated to acquire the abandoned piece. Abandoned's not the right word. Orphaned, because it was separated from all of their other property. The Sandberg said, we don't think this is worth it. We think you should buy this from us as well. Part of the agreement the city council reached was that they purchased the right of way for the road as well as the orphaned piece. And so if the city were to just put it on the market as a whole, the city would be required per eminent domain law of Utah to allow the Sandberg family to come and have the right to purchase it back. The city has given the Sandberg family that option twice in the last 10 years. This property has been subject to lengthy negotiations of exchange or sale. So twice the city has given White Hills the opportunity to rebuy it, and they've never exercised that option. And so they're not part of the exchange agreement.
Okay. All right.
So I
That's
think
new
it's
information.
our hope that what we're doing will change the value of this so that has greater value than just being a dumping ground for what's there. The exchange agreement that he referred to was an exchange that gives right of way for the city to have access to the Shinnecock Trail. I really think that I'm hoping we'll, all subject to, but there's a huge process for them coming in. They may ask for a different zoning. Yeah, I'm hoping that we're cleaning up a problem.
The exchange agreement gives, as is stated by Mayor Pro Tem, access to the legal access to the Shinnecock Trail. Also legal right to construct a trail atop the surface of the canalway, which is right there. As well as money, the balance of the difference in values between the exchange properties.
Okay. I think the neighbors are in favor of that, actually. So that's great.
I thought they might be. That's what I was trying to get to that point.
You asked the question, and again, it was a public meeting. It's a public document. I'm going to give you the information because it's public.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I don't think we're stepping out of bounds to say that the city is trying to improve the area here, not make it a problem. And we do have policies and code in place that if it becomes a problem, I expect to hear from people and we can help clean it up. But that certainly isn't our intention. And we really think that when this is all finished, it'll be a credit to the neighborhood. So,
wonderful. Thank you.
Could I ask one clarification and counsel or legal counsel? I'm sure you know the answer to this. So the city has the lower piece that's crosshatched, and then there's a private piece above that to the north of that. And this zone change encompasses the whole thing. Is that what you understand or no? Just the piece that's
just the
crossed?
city's piece,
Okay.
right?
So what is the nature of the piece that's left then, or what's the zone there?
It's still the Ag 20 for
Okay.
now.
I believe there's a zone change before the planning commission that regards that
For
piece.
that, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's current zoning councilman on the piece to the north is PUD.
Oh, it's PUD.
Oh, I see. Correction, sorry.
If I may just jump in real quick, just to why that's on everybody's mind, where I put that X, that brown piece, the piece that everybody's talking about gets real skinny. That is in a tabled state right now with the Planning Commission. They will revisit that on their meeting July 7th. It is tabled till, and that's being asked for the RA half as well, just for everybody's understanding. But it is in a tabled state right now, this piece up here, just to help answer those questions.
Why is that tabled out so far?
Because of your meetings tonight and next week.
I'll answer that. So I attended planning commission. It just did not get on the agenda.
Why, I realized it got missed. I wasn't sure why it was June 7th is our next planning commission meeting. That's fine. Or July
It
7th.
needed to be, it wasn't properly noticed. It wasn't properly published. So July is the first meeting within which the proper publication can occur on the change.
And we're still in a public meeting here, or a
Yes.
open hearing. So
I just had a follow-up question, Kevin
can you
Williams.
restate your name? Everything is going to go on the record here.
Yeah, Kevin Williams. Do you know if the orphan piece does it have an appraised value? I'm just curious if it didn't go back to, I think you said the Sandbergs under original agreement, that it would, then it would have to be put on I think the councilman before said it would have to be put in a closed bid kind of situation. So I was just wondering if it had been appraised, if you knew the value of that piece of property.
So the state eminent domain law says that any land that is taken under threat of condemnation, which in this case, our opinion is that the fact that the city had started a condemnation lawsuit and then settled it by agreement, that threat of condemnation was the motivator here. So our opinion is that threat of condemnation is what led to the city acquiring this. Then if the city were to later resell it without having added value, it would have to first offer it as a right of first refusal to the party it took it from. The eminent domain code specifically has a subsequent section that says that if it is in an exchange, it does not have to be offered to the prior owner. Now, for 10 years, the city's been trying to figure out what to do with this ever since the agreement with White Hills. In this situation, it just so happens that the owner of the piece that's, doesn't have legal access at this point also owns the legal access to a trail that this city council wants to publish and develop.
Okay.
And so it's not a exchange agreement just to satisfy the statute. It actually accomplishes a purpose that this city council really wants to be able to make available to all of its residents.
And you might know this, but there's
And-
a 5-foot wall.
Well, you also asked about
yeah.
an appraisal. Yes,
Right.
there was an appraisal.
Okay.
And the appraisal was on all of the real property that's involved in the exchange. So different parcels were appraised.
I get it. Okay. There's a wall that goes on our property line that borders the west side of that orphan piece. And it's about 5 foot. And just, you probably already know this, but if you stand in my backyard and look, that piece of ground is about 5 to 6 feet higher. It slopes down really steep, but it's 5 or 6 feet higher than the wall. And so that maybe that answers the other concern, like maybe what's going to happen there. So anyway, thank you so much. You appreciate all you do.
Yeah, and so any future use of that's going to have a grading plan and if necessary, permits to and retention to deal with slope issues.
We're still in a public meeting. We'll give just a second for anybody else who would like to comment. Then I'll look to the council for a motion to close the public meeting.
So made.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Council, any other questions or discussions on this item?
Yes, I have a question for Drew regarding the zoning. We asked for residential agricultural half-acre lots, RA 1/2. Is there a reason that we asked for the residential agriculture rather than just residential zoning?
Yeah, there is. And and I'm bringing this map up just to kind of help you see why. This area here, you can see, I'm going to get out my trusty pencil here.
He loves that stuff.
Because I've got RA half over here, and then I've got PUD over here, and not to try to create some extra color in here, which, could have been your straight residential. The council has every option to go there. Again, the general plan says R110 or R112. But as you can see, I don't have R110 or R112 close by. I have R18 over here, this orange color. And so I was just trying to, again, be consistent with surrounding zoning. And so again, I didn't want to go PUD because of all the extra that's involved in it. And this is RA half over here on this east boundary. So that's why staff just arbitrarily, and I guess not arbitrarily, just felt it was more appropriate to do the RA half. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Well, I think the city's being conservative there as well. I mean, where you're selling a piece of property for yourself, we could zone it whatever we wanted, but I think we're being conservative to fit within the neighborhood as well, which doesn't mean the future owner will not come back to us with an application to modify that, but that would take more time and more of this process. Any other questions? Okay. Yeah, we're there. So this will be, we'll be voting on this at our next meeting, which will be, I'm not looking at, what is our next?
23rd.
The 23rd. Okay. At this point, I would like to bring forward the item 4C. There was a question, Councilman Coates had, Councilman Coates had a question for staff.
Yeah, so I think we'd ask, is Mike Shaw on the line?
So Mike, we're on the final plat item 4C, consideration for approval of the final plat for the Village 26 at Stuckey Farms.
Mike, the question I had is during the preliminary plat that was just a couple weeks ago, we asked about the widening of the road to meet the half road width plus 6 feet. And I thought that would be addressed in the final plat. And now I see that it's not. So, and the access also wasn't shifted to the middle of those lots like we talked about.
Okay, so the first one is the half road. We do a half road plus 1 lane when it's a 50-foot right of way. When we get larger than that, we usually just require the 30 feet of asphalt.
Okay, that makes sense. Now what about the access?
But the access, that I'm not sure why that didn't get shown moved to the center.
Councilman Codes, I can speak onto that access. I spoke to the applicant on that. And lot 1, what they're proposing there, they didn't want, they've agreed upon access through lot 3, which will then turn into lot 1. If that answers
on the plat that identifies that.
It does, yeah. It says lot 1 access shall be utilized through lot 3. And then we also made another note that no access for lot 3 will be taken off of Washington Fields Road.
Okay. Addresses it for me. So with that, if there's no other.
I didn't hear your last comment there, sir.
I just said that addresses the concerns that I had
Okay,
that we
thank you.
discussed because they weren't addressed. And so with that, I'll make a motion that we approve the final plat for the Village 26 at Stuckey Farms.
Bundy, second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. We will move back to item 8A, consideration to approve a resolution offering medical insurance benefit opt-out. I think we're looking to our manager for this.
Yes, we talked about this a month ago now, and the resolution is up for your consideration. I think everybody understands what this is, but if somebody has insurance through a spouse or some other way, they can provide proof of that insurance, and the city would allow opt out of their coverage. Again, no fiscal impact to the city because any amount expended is similar to the cost of providing insurance. So if there's no questions, or if there are questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
You know, I was really concerned about this when I first saw it because I had those same questions, but they were addressed, and I feel perfectly comfortable with it. If the council has no more questions, I will make a motion to approve a resolution offering a medical insurance benefit opt-out.
Bundy, second.
Have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Councilman Staley?
Staley, aye.
Councilman Ivy?
IVI.
Coates, aye.
Bundy, aye.
Ward, aye. I would like to just thank, I know Councilman Coates brought this forward, and our city manager, Jeremy Redd, just jumped on to it, brought forward the idea. This just benefits our staff in a way that doesn't really cost the city anything and just makes it a little more flexible for them. And we are certainly in a competition with all kinds of other entities for good employees. It's nice to do good by our employees and help them. So.
Yeah, and I would just add that this is something that's done in other municipalities. So it's great for us to be able to be competitive and on that level playing field. And I would just hope that, I guess it'll be made known to staff as they review benefits and things like that, so that those that it applies to, they would have the opportunity. Maybe they're all paying attention already.
Well, we are prepared for it. One of the logistical issues is that we have a time where we can make insurance changes, and we've asked PHP to extend that for us. But anyone who wishes to take advantage of the program will need to do so before the 1st of July.
Oh, so there's a real rush to it. So
there is. It doesn't take a lot to participate, but we will be sending out an email to all those.
Just open enrollment.
What about new hires? Do new hires have an opportunity
They do.
to opt in at any time or
New
opt out?
hires can opt in. Yep, at any time. It's just if you currently have in health insurance benefits, you can only do that during the open enrollment period. And then if somebody had a life event and lost their insurance from their other source, at any moment, they can come back onto the city
Nice.
insurance. So.
Very nice. Okay, we are on to item 9, report of officers from assigned committees. I'll look to my left there, Councilman Bundy, Councilman Coates.
Pretty quiet with my assignments right now.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Ivy. Councilman Staley, it kind of puts a pressure on me. I feel like saying something, but my committee assignment was canceled. I didn't have an item on one of those, so we will look to item number 10, the city manager report.
Okay, a couple of items discussing fireworks restrictions. We have a current updated map that we use every year for fireworks restrictions. So if anybody wants to look at that, basically the idea is that you can do fireworks anywhere that isn't a dangerous area outside of our developed community. But that map is online. If anybody wants to look at it, it's the same one we've used. And we kind of update it as development happens.
Can I
Now-
insert a plug in there for our online? If people go to our online webpage, the search bar in there is tremendously helpful. There's a lot of information in there, but IT has done a great job of making that search bar very helpful to just go right to the items you want to. Thank you.
Yeah, the entire website is really a huge benefit, and I use it every day to find things I need. So it's nice to know that the residents are able to do that as well.
Mr. Red, could I ask you a question before you move on from the fire restrictions? Is there anything from the state of Utah that has asked for additional restrictions?
Yes,
for
that was my
fireworks?
next sentence on my little list here, but
Oh, I did it too.
the state is deciding, they have banned fireworks in all state areas, and they're deciding whether or not to ban them statewide. So the city does not have that option to ban all fireworks, but the state does, and they're looking at that. Governor came out this morning and said they're looking at it. So
So say it goes down that road, does that ban all sales at?
I'm not sure about sale. It would ban all the ability to use
Fine, you just can't
fireworks
use them.
in the state of Utah. So I assume there wouldn't be a whole lot of sales happening.
And you're aware that the state's already essentially only allowed 2 periods of, well, three periods of firework usage.
Well, what's the third?
New Year's
Oh.
and then the July holidays.
Oh, good. I'm compliant.
New Year's is the best one. I mean, it's cold, it's
So we,
Dry.
we do have an exciting thing coming up. Chief Evans lets me know that by our next council meeting, we'll have our new fire engine. So expect to see that and possibly go for a ride if you want to.
We have it parked out front.
Yeah,
as we
absolutely.
show up.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll put it out here for you.
Yeah.
And then just sort of as a broken record, but May building permit numbers, again, hit all kinds of records, 32% increase over the same month last year. We issued 127 residential building permits in the month of May. And we had a similar increase in inspections of over 30% compared to last year. So I think it's important to recognize we're seeing no slowdown in the growth at this point. And our staff is doing tremendous work to try to work through these applications and work through the inspections that happen and the public works work that has to go through to make this all happen. It's just, it's stressing us, our city infrastructure a lot, our staffing to do this as well. And of course, we're ramping up as we get into the new budget season. But I just want to commend the staff for all the hard work that they've done to make this happen. You don't normally in a business, you don't add 30% without, really causing some stress to your current operations. And we're seeing that. Interestingly, if in June we follow the same pattern, we have one more year left in the fiscal year that we track, we would end with 932 new residential building permits for the year, which is again a record. And considering that we average 3 residents per home, that would add 2,796 new residents to Washington in the last 12 months. So, we add essentially a small city each year at the pace that we're going at. So just interesting to continue to think about those numbers. That's all I had.
For those that are paying attention, I just really enjoyed that neither age nor length of meetings has deterred this council from keeping their childhood interest in fire trucks alive.
Yes.
So that's good.
Are you making fun, Councilman Ward?
I told you I liked it. I'm speaking the truth. You were seconded by a couple of others who were also.
I'm all about it. I just think it's exciting to get some new equipment for those fire department. That's good.
Mayor, if there's nothing else, I would motion that we adjourn our regular session, go into closed session to discuss pending or potential litigation.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We will take a minute recess here and then we'll adjourn to a closed session.